Hey, everybody. So, this is a re release of the script, The Final Scream by Joe Vallese. It was released on December 19th, 2025, before Scream 7 came out. So, I'm going to leave the introduction in here with Joey, but just focus on the fact that Scream 7 hadn't come out yet. We didn't know much about the real Scream 7 at this point. And this script, it's a spec script written by Joe Vallese. He is a best selling LA Times writer from the book It Came from the Closet, Queer Reflections on Horror. He previously wrote the Scream 7 script, which was episode 112. He wrote the Screams script, which was episode 155. And then this is the third chapter in this arc and trilogy. So I hope everyone enjoys listening to this while we're on a bit of a hiatus between seasons 5 and 6. And everyone, please join us on August 2nd, which is Wes Craven's birthday, for the premiere of season 6. It's going to be me and my friend Mark Kincaid. We are introducing the 30 Years of Scream 30 Questions interview. So if you would like to have your own interview on this podcast for the 30th anniversary of Scream, please subscribe to the Patreon and you will get your spot. So, all right, everyone, please enjoy the final Scream.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby. But do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. This is a momentous occasion. It's the end of an era. It's a final girl for the final time. It's a final script for the final time. My friend Joey Vallese is an LA Times best-selling writer from the book It Came from the Closet, Queer Reflections on Horror. He has written now 3 full scripts for this podcast in between Scream 6 and Scream 7 as we've awaited the return of Sidney Prescott. So we have released Scream 7 back in June of 23. We've released Screams in April of 24. And now here we are in December of 25. On the heels of the anniversary of the original film, we are releasing the final Screams. Everyone, please welcome my friend, Joe Vallese. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me. It's funny because obviously I know that all these scripts happen between 6 and the new 7, but I didn't know at the same time. Like, the timeline is kind of like, whoa, I wrote 3 spec scripts for continuing this story in the time that, we've gotten between 6 and 7, which is kind of wild. Yeah.
You doing these scripts in between 6 and 7 and this, this tumultuous time, this exciting time, has been like one of the best things that we could have done with this podcast, in terms of just keeping the fans excited, engaged, and passing the time. And also, people will see when they listen to the episode they're about to hear, your version of Sidney and Gale is probably different from the Sidney and Gale we're going to get in Kevin's film.
Yeah.
And I love that we got to exercise the way that some of us see these characters, in the way, especially in the way that you write Gale. I think that she could be very different in the real movie. She was certainly different than she was in Scream 6.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful to you that you brought to life Sidney and Gale in these ways. We've talked recently like it's almost like this is a trilogy of stories about Sidney and Gale. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you're correct about that. There's definitely this sort of 2 things were happening at once, right? I was closing out, I was prescient, not realizing that I'd be closing out the Carpenter sisters story because, this was written, 7 was written, R7 was written right after 6, right?
Right.
Before we knew what would be happening with the Carpenter's sisters or the actual movies. But at the same time, it was the beginning of a new trilogy. So 7 was kind of this closing of a new trilogy, but then the start of another trilogy at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is something that I don't think I realized at the time because I thought it would only be that one script. And then you sort of sweet talked me into doing more. And when I did Screams, I think you knew what you were doing. When I did that sort of quote unquote standalone Screams, you insisted that the Sidney Prescott must be in it. And I originally was not going to put Sidney in it. And then once I put Sidney in it, I realized I can't let this be the last time that we see Gail and Sidney together. So in that way, it's sort of guaranteed that there'd have to be a third script as well. So yeah, it worked out just as it should have, I think, but not the way that I imagined. And to be clear to everybody, I had never written fan fucking fiction before. I was very queasy at the idea of doing it.
Yeah.
And then I think Ryan sort of guided me towards this, hey, these are spec scripts, they're possibilities. These are actually, resume, calling cards for you that would exist out into the, in the world. And when I thought about it that way, that allowed me to take it very seriously as an endeavor. And I'm very, very proud of these 3 scripts. What you're about to hear is the most novelistic of the 3. It's probably the closest to me as a prose writer. It's much longer than the other 2. It Ryan can attest to it, I think, but it reads more novelistically, and that was on purpose by design. And I also just wanted to indulge a little bit and give us a really rich, lengthy conclusion, because to my mind, this really is the end. It really is the final Scream. It doesn't mean that I won't necessarily get the itch to have some sort of spin-off thing that I do for Ryan in the future, because I will probably be inspired by whatever actually comes of Scream 7. And I want to go back really quickly. I don't think that the Sidney and Gale of that 7 will resemble the Sidney and Gale that I built, but I think there's probably, I think that Kevin's instinct is probably to get closer to, or at least begin some of what I have done. Not that he's reading these or listening to these, though he's welcome to, and I hope he will. But I think that my instinct for who Gale and Sidney could be to each other and to the franchise, I'm guessing that Kevin has a bit of that same foresight. They're his characters, so I don't know, but I'm really honoring his characters, so I hope that it's going in that direction, if that makes sense.
So the way I see it is it's a spectrum. You have radio silence and Jamie over here. You have Joey over here on the other end of the spectrum. And Kevin, it's where is Kevin going to fall on that spectrum? I think he will be closer to you than to radio silence, but we shall see. And, the great thing is no matter even if Scream 7 does disappoint us, because I mean, it's possible that it could, especially as it pertains to Gale. I don't think it will with Sidney. I think Sidney will deliver. But, the Gale we see here, I think, I feel like Scream fans, even if we don't actually get the Gale that we deserve in real life, we get her through your writing. We've gotten her through your writing of all 3 of these scripts. And I can't wait for people to hear Gale. I can't wait for people to hear what you do with Sidney. I think her character arc is so unexpected. I think the whole script is so unexpected. It's not going to be what people are thinking at all. It's not traditional. It is, but it isn't. It's very spiritual. I'm going to use this word over and over again in the episode next week. This is such an eclipse of the beginning and the end.
Yeah, no, I think it'll make sense to people when they hear it. It's sort of, I don't want to use the key term because that will spoil, but there is a word that that I'm referring to that gets spoken by a character at the end that is basically the theme of this film or this script. So I think you're right about that. I don't want to say too much. I want people to hear it and to dive into it. But I will say that I think that I've said this before to you and I'll say it to the audience now. I wanted to create something that felt epic and intimate at the same time. And that was my goal. And I kept that tension in mind. So what I mean by that is what you'll hear is that it feels like it's inspired by domestic thrillers of the 90s. That was sort of the guiding principle. And there's lots of little Easter eggs about domestic thrillers, but it feels lived in and the world feels lived in. And the timeline is small. The space of where things take place is small. So I kept it intimate in terms of the reality, but the scope of the story and what's happening, I think, is quite big. And so I tried to balance those two for the entire script. And I think it worked out.
When I'm reading it, I am so obsessed with the eclipse thing that I'm talking about as it pertains to the beginning meeting the end in a weird spiritual way. I forget about the domestic thrillers, but I have to say the references that you have here, the actual movie titles and the moments that you reference of other genre-y things, I think it's the best, barring the original film. I literally of all 9 projects that we've seen, I think it's that strong, it's that focus, it's that on point. And going, I have to give Joey all of the kudos, all of the praise, all of the accolades for his work, not only with the script, but all 3 scripts. And I'm going to even say 4 scripts, including the original Patreon
Oh,
opening,
yeah.
Screams,
I
episode
love that one.
43. I do too.
Would still work too. They could borrow that anytime as an opener. Would still be great, I think.
Even in for a Tatum Scream 8, if Tatum is the lead of Scream 8, that could be the opening, with Sidney at home with the other girls. But I have to compliment Joey on the logic, the thoughtfulness, his ability and talent with character, dialogue, action, ingenuity, thinking outside the box, keeping it fresh, and just the genuine amount of time that he spent on this. Like, I understand like the way that he works. I probably understand. I was thinking about this. Like, I probably understand your writing better than anybody else in the world but you, just because of how much time I've lived in it. So I understand like how you think through things and like how you think through the logic of it, and that's kind of how you break through into the story and the character choices. It's so good. You're so talented. I'm so grateful to you for giving us these scripts, giving this podcast this opportunity to do this. I've had the time of my life doing this. So thank you so, so much.
Well, the feeling is more than mutual. I feel really privileged that I got to do this. Again, not something I expected to do, like immensely creatively satisfying. Truly. It never felt like a waste of time. It never felt like a silly side project. It felt like a real, and I have to thank you because over these past few years, every time we release a script, I find new readers for It Came From the Closet. I get messages from people who buy the book and experience the book based on hearing me. And, It Came From the Closet is an anthology that I edited. It's 25 queer and trans writers writing personal essay about horror movies that have impacted their or speak to their queer identity in some way. I curated the book. I did all the labor of love onto it. I wrote the introductory essay and my own essay, and the book lives on. And I think that a lot of that, a big piece of it has to do with your audience and new people who find the book. And so I'm grateful that I get to engage with this audience and this fandom in this really organic way by giving them this like sort of alternate reality treat that is, to my mind, real writing and real literature and a real performance piece because you perform it, and then they find their way to the text, which I care about and am so passionate about, and still has legs and makes me happy. And I know that a lot of that comes from your listeners. And I also want to say one last thing. It's always been tough. It's tough to be part of any fandom because any fandom of diehards, and I'm talking like pre-2023, just in general, when you're part of any fandom, there are divisions, there is tension, there is sort of the good majority, and then there is the faction that wants to argue, wants to not get along, wants to shit on the thing that they purport to love so much. And whether people love what they hear or not in this context, it also feels like a really pure sort of like alternate like appendage of the fandom that I feel really proud to be able to give to everybody, whether or not they love it or listen to it or think that it's a piece of shit or think it's the best thing they ever heard. The spectrum is big, or bless their hearts, the people who respond to the posts about it coming and don't know or don't read that it is a spec script that's being read and not anybody, saying that this is the actual thing that is to come. But I feel like it feels like a reciprocal good deed to give this to our fandom. And I'm grateful that most people respond really positively to it. And I hope that they have a wonderful ride with the next 3 hours because I really enjoyed. I took a lot of time. It took me the longest to write this and think about it and meditate on it and ruminate. A lot of that time was not spent writing, but thinking.
Yeah.
And when I finally did write it, it wrote probably in the same span of time technically as the other two, but the time that I spent really thinking about what should happen for this final part, it took a lot of brain space, but I'm really pleased because I think it was worth it.
It fucking shows. And I don't know because I'm at this point, I'm not.
You're very biased. I know.
I'm not an objective arbiter of this stuff because I've lived it and I understand it so deeply and I understand every choice you made so deeply. And even as you were writing, there may be things I didn't understand or didn't appreciate in the same way. Scream 7 and Screams were different. As you were writing it, it's boom, you read, if you read 2 or 3 paragraphs, you get it, you love it. This, when you look at it, not in chunks, but just as the holistic thing, it is sweeping. It's devastating. It's so emotional. I've been emotional the past 3 weeks. I've been like Ariana Grande, and you're going to be holding my finger here as we go through the next 2 hours when we do our commentary, because I have been so emotional, in different ways, because this was hard to do on my end. It was probably the hardest by far. of the scripts to do. So there's that element, but then there's also the appreciation and like the exhilaration. What do you say about Ella and Grace? The terror and exhilaration when they go into the pretty room, I should say.
Yeah, people will know what we're talking about then.
Seeing everyone's excitement for it. We've made these promotional posts, and then just me kind of getting to listen to it in full and like edit it down and get it perfect and getting the emotions. Like I've listened to the script probably 15 times and I'm still tearing up. I've never been so emotional, even with the other two scripts, even with Sam dying and Tara. Like I have never been this emotional throughout the script. There's probably 15 times yesterday when I was listening. I had literal tears like on my face.
Well, I think part of it too is that progressively as time has gone on, your involvement decreased in the scripts, and you were really just getting whatever I wrote, and so you were waiting for it and reacting to it. And I think that's important. I think especially this one, I think this one you were the most in the dark. And Scream 7, you had the most involvement because you really proposed ideas to me and that I then kind of put into action. And then Screams was, you were still there in terms of like what you were responding to my ideas. But I really left you in the dark for this one, and you really got to be surprised every step of the way and respond. And I think that that's part of the reason why the emotions were so heightened, because I really, aside from the opening, which I gave you a version of a long time ago, which then changed in some key ways, but kept the spirit of that original. But I basically fed you pieces along the way, and you were surprised, and you never knew what I was doing or who anybody was. And so you really had to like acclimate yourself to it all. And I think that's part of it. I think that's why this one probably feels the most heavy on you, because it is a heavy script, but I think that it's because you really didn't know what was happening. And yeah.
And last thing I'll say before we turn it over to the script itself is I think your work has gotten better with each script.
Thank you.
I think the definitive ranking is Final Scream, Screams, Scream 7. I don't know why. It's just Scream 7 looks a lot less shiny compared to what we just experienced. And I don't know if it's like because of like in Scream 7, you were dealing with the end of the radio silence era. You weren't really getting to make your own characters as much. You were dealing with what we had. It was bringing Sidney into the fold and balancing everything else. That looks less shiny compared to, I mean, it's brilliant, and like the killers there are brilliant, like the deaths are brilliant, it's so impactful, but like compared to this masterpiece, because this is a masterpiece, holistically it's, my mind is blown.
I mean, it's different for me. I wrote them, so I can't really say, but I would say yes. I would say, again, 7 was, I'm not the biggest fan of the radio silence movies. I've not been secretive about that. I like 5. I really don't like 6, but 7 was a challenge to me because instead of doing the sort of, I didn't retcon anything. I didn't delete anything. I just took what was there and I said, I'm going to create a version of this that I love. And as a result, it recontextualized how I felt about the Meeks, how I felt about the Carpenter sisters, how I felt about the sort of requel formula of introducing this other thing that, like Billy's daughter and the hallucinations and the mental illness and the history that's only hinted at in 5 and 6, but not explored, and kind of restoring Gail and bringing Sidney back. So I had to do all these prescribed things, but that challenge and those boundaries that were there helped me write 7. And like, I love 7 because it helped me love pieces of those other 2 movies far more because I was involving myself and being active in them. Screams and the final Scream are really complete, like, from my mind, but Screams is a sassier, sleeker bottle movie kind of almost, right? Like it has its opening and then we're in one building for the rest of the movie. And that was also, those boundaries, those obstructions are good. They help me to live within a frame. But for the final Scream, I really had to come up with everything whole cloth in a lot of ways. But I planted seeds in my 7 and Screams to get me to where I had to be. Sure, I agree with that ranking, but it's different for me because I'm thinking about it differently. I will say it is the most wholly original of mine, and it matches my, Screams felt like somebody hired me to like overhaul a new season of a show, and I had like bitchy one-liners for 115 pages or whatever it was. And the final Scream feels more like coming home to who I am as a writer, as a horror lover, as somebody who's really, I had a mentor in college who said of my final thesis that he did a write-up, and he said that my writing is concerned with the politics of family. And I've always thought about that, and I always appreciated that. I didn't quite know what he meant, but when I look at this, I think the politics of family says a lot about the final Scream.
I have a note for you in our next episodes. Everyone, please
Mhm.
tune in for the next episode. It's going to be me and Joe talking about the script and analyzing it.
Anyway, everybody, I hope you really, really enjoy this script. And look, if the most that you're coming for is a lot of Gail and Sidney, you're going to be happy, I think.
Absolutely. Everything else will be a cherry on top. But please let us know what you think. Send Joey and me a message. We would love to hear. Comment on the
Yeah.
posts. Like, we want to know. So, Joey, where can they find you online?
These days, you can only find me on Instagram at my It Came From the Closet account. That's It Came From the Closet _ between all the words. I've given up on X, or X gave up on me. So you can find me there, and you can also relay any messages via Ryan and his Patreon and directly to him, because we chat every day. So
As you listen to the next 3 hours of The Final Scream, please keep the following actors in mind for the specific characters who are in the script. The following actors are the people Joey and I have envisioned for these characters in the script. So, of course, we have Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, and Patrick Dempsey as Mark Kincaid. In our Scream 7 script, Joey wrote back in 2023, Sidney had 2 young daughters, Ella and Grace, and they're both still very young in this script. Ella is the youngest, and Grace is like older elementary school, so just for that perspective. Okay, so here we go. Here is the new cast, okay? So we have Liv Tyler as Sharon Kruger, who is Sidney's best friend and Grace's teacher. We have Josh Hartnett, who plays Ross Kruger, Sharon's husband and Mark's friend. We have Sophie Thatcher, who plays Sadie Kruger, their daughter and babysitter of Ella and Grace. From there on out, we have Hudson Williams, who plays Max. He is Sadie's boyfriend. We have Sam Nivola, who plays Arthur, a friend of Sadie. Then we have Jamie Lee Curtis as Janet Mancini, and Alfred Woodard, who plays Alice Greenwood. They are a couple and Sidney's neighbors. We have Ariana Grande playing Kayla Bartell, who is Sidney's previous nanny. We have Stuart and William Hooper, played by Scott Evans and T.R. Knight, who Kayla works for now. They have a baby whose name is Arlo. And we have Bowen Yang, who plays Norman Wu, who is the neighbor of William and Stuart. From there, we have Stephen Yun, who plays Principal James Lee, who is the principal at Grace's school. We have Leslie Bibb, who plays Lulu Peters, who is Sidney's friend and caterer. We have Luke McFarland, who plays Lex, who is Sidney's trainer. And then we have 3 characters, book club, wine moms, friends of Sidney's. They are Olivia Munn as Mimi, Natasha Rothwell as Callie, and Brooke Smith as Debbie Ann. The Final Scream, written by Joe Vallese, based on the characters created by Kevin Williamson, Aaron Kruger, and Wes Craven. Over Blackness, the familiar metallic howling of Marco Beltrami's score from the original film's opening title sequence, but this time the subsequent screams are from a distraught toddler. Interior kitchen night. Kayla, mid-20s, yoga-bodied, high ponytail, stands at the marbled waterfall kitchen island in a kitchen worthy of Architectural Digest. A tripod holds her iPhone at a meticulous angle, a ring light haloed overhead. Kayla, soft ASMR tone. Hi, breasties. Welcome back to Nanny K's Corner. Tonight's K quandary is, how can we practice genuine self-care when our day-to-day identity is so bound up, caring for others? For some much-needed wisdom, I'm revisiting an old favorite I used to turn to when I managed a Pilates studio back in LA. The burnout was real, believe me. She holds up a book titled Holding Space for You. On the phone screen, the book isn't quite in frame. She takes a step back, clears her throat. Her smile drops as a baby's wailing overtakes the kitchen acoustics. She looks over her shoulder at a wall-mounted high-tech baby monitor. Arlo, around 2 years old, pulls himself up, standing at the edge of the crib. He points to something out of frame, closes his eyes tight, heaving sobs, pure fear. Kayla, shit. Interior nursery night. Kayla opens the door to the nursery to find Arlo hysterical, shaking at the bars of his crib. Kayla, Arlo, what is it, Bubba? Interior living room night. In the middle of a palatial, ultra-modern living room, Kayla glides back and forth on an oversized yoga ball, soothing Arlo back to sleep. On the opposite wall, A state-of-the-art projector system plays Rosemary's Baby on mute. A wavy reverse image of Mia Farrow, knife in hand, approaching the infamous black bassinet, casts itself over Kayla. Arlo grows still. Kayla carefully glides off the ball and stands up. She starts back toward the staircase when the house phone starts ringing. Arlo's eyes swing open. Kayla gently rocks him as she nimbly hurries over to the coffee table and grabs the phone. Unknown caller. Kayla declines before the next ring. Interior nursery, night. Kayla lays a snoozing Arlo back down into his crib. She spots his pacifier hanging between the crib bars and guides it back into his mouth. Kayla taps the sound machine on the nightstand. White noise fills the room. Through the house, Kayla trapezes back down the dark, impossibly long hallway, with floor-to-ceiling windows on either side that look out over an affluent neighborhood of nearly identically constructed, generously spaced-out homes. Interior kitchen, night. Kayla is back before her iPhone. She studies her face in the screen, redoes her ponytail. Once again, the house phone rings. She sighs, walks over to the cordless on the kitchen table. Unknown caller. She declines, sits back down to restart her video, but before she can even press record, Arlo's screams slice through the quiet. She exhales patiently. Interior nursery, night. Kayla enters the nursery once again, but sees that Arlo has already fallen back asleep, his arm wrapped tightly around a stuffed baby ghost. Kayla cocks her head, confused. She looks back at the nursing glider where Arlo's other stuffed animals are arranged and notes the gap where the ghost was. She shrugs, lets it go. Close on the nursing glider, ever so slowly rocking back and forth. Kayla doesn't seem to notice. Interior kitchen, later. Kayla is finishing up her recording. Kayla, remember to subscribe on Instagram, X, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads, and for all of my retro breasties, Tumblr, hashtag nanny ninjas. Kayla flashes a peace sign and holds her smile for an unnaturally long time before ending the recording. She grabs her phone off the tripod and begins to watch her video back. She looks up, startled, when she hears the thump from the floor above. She walks over to the wall monitor and sees Arlo still fast asleep. Kayla jumps nervously once again when the phone rings. She lets it ring and hurries out of the kitchen. Interior staircase, night. Kayla briskly makes her way back up the serpentine staircase. She claps as she ascends, her path instantly illuminated. Interior nursery, night. Kayla opens the door a crack to check on Arlo and scan the room. He's fast asleep and the room dim and still. Interior hallway, night. Kayla peers into every door she passes and nothing is amiss. She pauses when, at the end of the hall, she sees a framed photograph of Arlo's fathers on their wedding day, leaned clumsily against the wall. Kayla runs her finger along the lengthy scratch on the wall from where the picture frame fell off its hook. She lifts the frame and hangs the picture back up. Interior living room, night. Kayla stands before the very expensive, very confusing media wall panel. She runs an unsure finger across the screen and presses a button, wincing in anticipation. The projector begins to roll itself back up into the ceiling. Kayla smiles, pleased with herself. Interior kitchen, night. Kayla stands at the bespoke Sub-Zero refrigerator with see-through glass doors and scans it for a snack. She bends down and pulls open the massive freezer drawer to find a neatly arranged row of a dozen different pints of fancy ice cream. She plucks two and considers them side by side. Interior living room, night. Kayla sits cross-legged on a geometrically absurd leather sectional. Both pints of ice cream opened before her on the coffee table. She spoons a bite into her mouth as she edits her recording. She taps different filters until she settles on the one that renders her glowing and poreless. The house phone rings again. Kayla sighs, reaches for the cordless on the end table. Unknown caller. This time, she answers. Kayla. Hooper residence. A male voice on the other end. Caller. Hi, I was worried you'd never pick up. Kayla. Who's speaking? Caller. I'm so sorry for calling so late. I'm Norman, Stuart and Will's neighbor, just down the hill, second to the last house on the left. You're Casey, right? The new nanny? Kayla. My name is Kayla. Norman. Of course. You're the influencer, right? Kayla. Something like that. Kayla gathers the ice cream from the coffee table and walks back to the kitchen. Interior kitchen night. Norman. I bet the guys are into that. They're very online. Anyway, how are you liking the neighborhood so far? Kayla places the pints back in the freezer. Kayla, not into the conversation. Is there something I can help you with, Norman? William and Stuart should be home soon. I can tell them you called. And called. And called. Norman. That's right. They're away for their anniversary? Kayla. Will's birthday. Norman. Of course. Listen, Kayla, I'm completely mortified to even tell you this, but a few weeks back, the boys had one of their parties. Kayla's eyes immediately scanned the living room wall of the framed iconic gay art. Norman. And I borrowed something without asking. I just realized tonight that I still have it, and, well, I would really like to return it before they see it's gone. Kayla sits down on one of the island counter stools. She smirks. Her imagination is running wild. Kayla, borrowed what, Norman? Norman, hey, do you think it'd be all right if I just popped over real quick? I could slip in, put it back where it belongs, and slip back out. No one has to even know I was there. Kayla, come on, Norman. You know I can't let anyone into the house without their permission. Norman, no, of course you can't. All alone in that big house. Only a stupid bitch in a horror movie would do that. Kayla pulls the phone from her face, grossed out by Norman's change in tone and rhetoric. Kayla, okay, gotta go, Norman. Kayla hangs up, puts the phone down on the island. It immediately rings again. Kayla, annoyed, answers. Norman, Jesus, Kayla, I'm so sorry. I was being way too familiar with you. I have a bad habit of that, especially with women. My therapist says it's unexpressed misogyny. I don't know, but I think it has to do with mother. The way she used to. Kayla makes a face. What's with this guy? Kayla, it's fine, Norman. You're forgiven, but I really do have to go. Bye now. Norman, wait. Okay, what if I just leave it outside? Then you can put it back for me. Kayla, how can I agree to that when I don't know what you're returning, Norman? I've only been here a couple of weeks, remember? How would I even know where it goes? Norman is silent. Kayla, wanting to be done. Fine, just leave it at the gate, but they're almost home, so... Norman, great! I'll be there in 5. I'll call you when it's out there, okay? You're a lifesaver. Oh, and Kayla, please forget you ever saw it. I would never be able to look at you in the eye again if I thought all you could think of me when you saw me was click. Kayla puts down the cordless phone and reaches for her cell. Dials. Kayla, fucking freak. Interior car night. Stuart and Will, a gorgeous May-December couple, are driving in their Range Rover when a call from Kayla comes in. Stuart taps the answer button on the steering wheel. Will, hey Kay, everything all right? Intercut. Kayla at the house, Will and Stuart in the car. Kayla, yeah, everything's great. It's just your neighbor, Norman. Will and Stuart exchange a knowing glance. Will, oh God, what about him? Kayla, he's been calling the house a lot. Stuart, probably shit-faced again. Will, his partner left him last year for the florist at Whole Foods. Since then, his drinking's been out of control. Stuart, not to mention the paranoia. Kayla, paranoia? Stuart, yeah, someone's always mad at him or has it out for him. Neighbors, coworkers, big pharma. What's the latest? Oh, the fucking phone company. Kayla nods. It's all making sense. Stuart, anyway, what do you want? Kayla, debating. Nothing really. I think he just wanted to talk. Lonely, I guess. Will, well, don't be afraid to tell him to fuck right off. He won't even remember it in the morning. Kayla, okay. Stuart, we'll be home in an hour. Need us to grab anything? Kayla, nope, all good here. Interior foyer, night a few minutes later. Kayla stands in the all-glass foyer, completely exposed. She looks out intently into the night. A series of delicate bulbs installed along the walkway, the only source of light. Kayla thinks she sees something, but can't be sure. She presses her face to the glass, strains to get a closer look. Ring, ring. Kayla jumps and lets out a small yelp as the cordless in her hand lights up. She answers. Norman. All right, it's there now. Kayla inputs a code into the security alarm panel beside the door. The system emits a pleasant jingle. Exterior house, night. Kayla steps outside, the phone still to her ear. She slowly makes her way down the short drive. Kayla, and where are you now? Norman, walking home. Why? Do you need me to come back? I guess I should have offered to wait in case some creep jumps out at you. Kayla, not funny, Norman. Kayla sees a nondescript fabric tote at the bottom of the driveway. As she bends down to grab it, she hears an ambiguous snap. A tree branch being stepped on, perhaps? She spins around, frightened, and takes in her surroundings. She sees only darkness and shadows, the late spring breeze causing a ripple through the fat bushes on either side of the front entrance. Kayla grabs the tote bag and runs back to the front door at top speed. Interior foyer, night. Back in the house, Kayla drops the tote on the ground, closes the door, and quickly sets the alarm. A flat beep indicates that she has done so incorrectly. She catches her breath, slowly inputs the code once again. The jingle plays. The doors audibly lock. Before she can catch her breath, the sound of Arlo crying through the monitor sends her quickly back in the direction of the staircase. Then, the cordless phone in her hand rings. Kayla freezes in place, angrily answers the phone. Kayla, what now? Norman, sorry, I just wanted to make sure you got in the house all right. You seemed scared or something. The way you ran back inside. Kayla, how do you know I ran into the house? Are you watching me, Norman? Norman, no, I just... Kayla, that's the baby up. I gotta go. Norman, wait, don't hang up on me. Kayla hangs up, starts up the steps, but freezes when she realizes interior living room night. The media system projector has been rolled back down. On the screen, the iconic opening sequence of When a Stranger Calls playing on mute. A terrified Carol Kane screaming soundlessly into the phone. The phone rings in Kayla's hands once more. She answers it and slowly brings it to her ear. Norman, hey, you opened the bag yet? Kayla, you know what, Norman? I think your therapist might be onto something. Maybe I'll just leave this bag in the kitchen for Will and Stu. An audible click. Familiar voice on the other end. Ghostface. And maybe I'll slice you open chakra to chakra with rusty blade, you little cunt. Kayla's jaw falls open. Now she's frightened. Kayla, fucking psycho. I'm calling the cops. Ghostface. It won't matter. I'll be done with you and out the door by then. But if you open the bag like a good girl, maybe this will go differently for you than those who came before you. Maybe. Interior foyer night. Kayla kneels down beside the tote bag, reaches a cautious hand inside, and pulls out the rolled up ball of black fabric that unfurls to reveal a ghost face robe. Tucked inside the robe is a mask that hits the floor with a smack. From within the mask, a photograph slides out. Kayla grabs the photograph from its corner, turns it around, and gasps. Close on, a picture of Sidney Prescott, Mark Kincaid, and their adolescent daughters, Ella and Grace, gathered around a birthday cake. In the reflection of a mirror behind them, Kayla taking the photograph. Kayla jumps to her feet. Kayla, who is this? What do you want? Ghostface, I already told you. I'm Norman, your neighbor, asking you for a little help. That's all. Arlo's wailing intensifies through the monitors. Kayla, help with what? Ghostface, there are 4 access codes to get onto Sidney Prescott's estate. 1 for the main gate, 1 for the garage, 1 for the front door, and 1 for the back patio. Give me the codes and I'll disappear. Like a ghost. It'll be like we never spoke. Kayla, I don't have them. They change them every month. Ghostface, you've only been gone for 18 days. Kayla, no, it's been longer. I went on a yoga retreat between jobs. Ghostface, you're lying. Give me the codes, Kayla. How many innocent people need to be sacrificed so Sidney Prescott can live? What makes her life worth more than yours? Worth more than Arlo's? Kayla gasps, runs into the kitchen and sees Interior Kitchen Night on the monitor. Arlo is missing from his crib. Ghostface, have you checked the children? Kayla drops the cordless, grabs a knife from the block on the island, pulls her cell from her yoga pant pocket, and dials 911 as she races out of the kitchen. Interior staircase night. Kayla rushes up the steps 2 at a time, but in her panic, she misses a step and trips forward, the knife slicing into her hand. She yells out in pain and drops her cell, which slides between the open banister, splats and falls onto the ground below. She considers going back for it, but decides against it after hearing the continued sounds of Arlo's cries. Interior nursery night. Kayla frantically pushes into Arlo's nursery, knife swinging. She hits the wall light switch with her elbow, looks around, listens. His cries are coming from another room. She carefully pulls open the door with the blade of the knife. Interior hallway night. Kayla strains to discern Arlo's crying. She takes a tentative step towards one of the rooms, grabs the knob, and yanks the door open. She braces herself and raises the knife, looks into an empty office. A sudden creaking of footsteps, Kayla spins around, waving the knife. Another creak. the very nearby sound of a door slamming. Kayla lets out a scream and then grabs hold of her mouth to stifle it. Blood smeared across her chin. Arlo's echoing cries seem to just be down the hall. Kayla takes a deep breath, turns the corner, and sees the bathroom door is slightly ajar. Kayla swallows, "Fuck, fuck, fuck!" She approaches the bathroom. Arlo's crying grows louder and louder, then stops. Kayla is now at the bathroom door. She pushes it open. She reaches the knife and uses the tip of the blade to raise the light dimmer. Interior bathroom night. The bathroom fills bright light. Kayla shrieks and swings the knife before realizing she's only looking at herself in the wall-length mirror before her. Her hand meets the glass, leaving a fist-sized crack. She yanks her hand back and screams, "Fuck!" Her knuckles nicked and bloodied. The knife falls into the sink. Arlo's crying resumes. Kayla sees the oval shower curtain has been closed all the way around the clawfoot tub. She takes a step forward, swiftly yanks the curtain back, and instead of Arlo, an open laptop plays a YouTube video titled "Babies Crying in Horror Movies Montage." Kayla bursts into tears. Interior hallway night. Kayla steps cautiously back out into the hallway, holding the knife between her shaking hands, the blood from her wounds making it nearly too slick to hold. She jumps at the sound of a thumping against a door. Down the hall, a closet door shaking with each steady pound from the other side. Someone trying to get out? Kayla approaches the door, reaches for the knob, pulls the door open to find a writhing, frantic man, 40s, gagged and bound at the ankles and wrists, one hand taped around a large hunting knife. He stumbles forward out of the closet and on top of Kayla. The knife slices her arm as they both crash the ground. Kayla wriggles out from under the man and hoists herself up against the wall, her arm and hand smearing blood across the pristine eggshell paint job. Before Kayla can get her bearings, Ghostface emerges from behind another door, rushes her from behind, gets her in a headlock. Kayla shrieks in terror, fighting his grip, waving the knife in every which way. Ghostface grabs her arm at the wrist and begins squeezing it with horrific force. He pushes Kayla back in the direction of the helpless man on the floor, pushes her onto her knees, brings her arm up in the air, and directs the knife down into the man's stomach. The man screams in agony. Kayla, terrified, sobs, "No, please stop it, don't!" Ghostface fastens his hand around Kayla's and drags the knife vertical and deep down the man's torso, his guts springing out in response. The man's face turns a shade of purple as he groans in pain. Ghostface, job complete, shoves Kayla down onto the man, rises to his feet, and walks back in the direction of the staircase. Kayla, soaked in the mix of the man's blood and her own, nearly hyperventilating at the shock of what's transpired. She leans back up against the wall and watches Ghostface's descent. Arlo's crying is now clearly coming from downstairs. Kayla, realizing she has to get to Arlo, climbs to her feet, then remembers her knife is in the dead man's stomach. She bends over and pulls it out. Kayla, freaking out. Sorry. Interior staircase night. Kayla walks slowly down the staircase, the bloody, gore-coated knife rubbery in her terrified hands. She freezes and lets out a scream when she sees Ghostface at the foot of the steps, holding a squirming Arlo. Kayla, "Please, don't hurt him! I'll do whatever you ask, please!" Ghostface turns a little knob on the shoulder of his robe. It lights up red, the built-in voice changer. Ghostface, "You know what I want, Kayla." Kayla looks over the banister at her cracked iPhone. Kayla, "I need my phone. It's all in there." Ghostface stands perfectly still, a sinister, stoic statue as Kayla walks past him. Arlo reaches for Kayla, tries to pull himself away from Ghostface's grip. Kayla, trying to hide her fear. Hey, it's okay, Bubba. Shh, it's okay." Kayla bends over and picks up the phone. Ghostface, "Unlock the app." Kayla puts the phone to her face for facial recognition. On the screen, a security app called Homestead flashes a prompt. Kayla attempts to input an access code, but her bloody fingers are making it impossible. She wipes her hand against her pants and tries again. This time it works. Ghostface, "Bring it to me." Kayla wills herself toward Ghostface, her slight frame shuddering before his majestic and terrible presence. Kayla, give me the baby first. Ghostface cocks his head. Ghostface, this is no dream, Nancy. You don't call any shots here. Ghostface presses the top of his knife to Arlo's chest. Kayla, okay. At least put him down. Please, I'm begging you. Ghostface, the phone, Kayla, now. Kayla extends her phone to Ghostface, but before he can grab it, Kayla presses the home button to activate Siri. Kayla, Siri, call Sidney Prescott. Before she can complete her sentence, Ghostface drops screaming Arlo to the ground and rushes Kayla, buries his knife deep into her chest. Kayla is silent, a mix of shock and air leaving her lungs. She falls to her knees, blood bubbling out from between her lips. Close on, Ghostface's hand as he retrieves Kayla's phone. He brings it to his ear. On the other end, a voice message. Sidney through the phone. Hi, you know who you called. Leave a message and I'll get back to you when I can. Ghostface hangs up, then scoops a resisting Arlo back up into his arms. Starts for the front door. Kayla falls onto all fours, desperately tries to crawl toward them, but she's fading fast. Exterior front door, night. Through the opened front door, we see Kayla pleading, reaching out an arm, choking out not a scream, but a pitiful whimper. Ghostface pulls the door closed behind him. Exterior driveway, night later. Will and Stewart's headlights illuminate the dark driveway. When they step out of the car, they can hear a movie blaring from inside. They look at each other, confused. Interior foyer, night. They step inside the house. They hear over-the-top screaming and tense orchestral music emanating from a scary movie. Will, Jesus! Will grabs Stewart's arm and gestures toward the bloody staircase before them. Will hurries into the living room. Will, Kayla! Stewart walks toward the kitchen, but before he can enter, Will's screams send him rushing back. Interior living room, night. Stewart, what? What is it? Stewart steps into the living room, where the opening sequence of the original stab plays on the projection screen. He finds Will, with his hand covering his mouth, in shock. In the middle of the room, Kayla's dead body, torso savagely torn apart from his knife wounds, splayed across the fuzzy, white, blood-soaked carpet. In her still hand, a bloody knife. Slumped on top of her, the dead man, now dressed in a Ghostface robe, but not wearing a mask. A knife jutting out of his back. Stewart kneels down beside Ghostface, pulls the mask from his head, revealing it to be the same man from the linen closet. He jerks back in shock. Stewart and Will grab at each other's arms in disbelief. Stewart, Norman? Will, realizing, God, where's the baby? Stewart grabs Will's hand and they hurry out of the living room. They don't have to look far, though. Standing behind them is Sweet Arlo, his pajamas soaked in blood, grinning with happiness to see them. In his hands, the Ghostface mask. Smash 2, the final scream. Exterior England Court, early morning. The sun rises over a picturesque, affluent gated community. A mix of Tudor brick and craftsmen, all graciously spaced apart, each set far back from impeccably manicured lawns. A jogging neighbor waves as he runs past an elderly woman walking her two excitable dogs. A man waters the plants at the end of his driveway while his wife looks on from the window with her cup of coffee. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, bedroom, early morning. Sidney Prescott and Mark Kincaid asleep in bed, curled deeply into one another. The sudden pop and vibrating creaking of the bedroom door cause Sidney's eyes to flash open. She sits up, then sighs. Sidney, Ellie Belly, what is it? At the foot of the bed, Sidney and Mark's daughter, Ella, 8, standing limply, a stuffed animal dangling from her hand. Ella, I can't sleep. There's a ghost in my room. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence. Ella and Grace's bedroom. Day. Ella leads Sidney by the hand into her room. She turns to Sidney and puts finger to her lips, then points to her sister, Grace, 11, who is still fast asleep. Sidney nods. Ella climbs onto her bed, gets up on her knees, and presses her head to the wall. She gasps and jerks back. She covers her mouth and gestures for Sidney to join her on the bed. Ella, barely audible. Listen. Sidney obliges, sits beside her. Ella, whispering. Do you hear him? Sidney presses her ear against the wall, hears a muffled warbling and fluttering. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, back patio, day. Sidney holds Ella's hand as they walk along the patio. Sidney, let's follow the sound, okay? Ella purses her lips, afraid but showing courage. As they walk, the trills grow louder, closer. Ella stops in her tracks, drops Sidney's hand, and covers her ears. Sidney, it's okay, baby. Come, I promise. Ella takes Sidney's hand. A moment later, Sidney, her robe flowing in the morning breeze, climbs a ladder while Ella watches from below. Sidney stops at the vent below Ella and Grace's bedroom window and peers inside. She pulls her head back and laughs. Sidney, come up, come see. Ella cautiously steps onto the ladder with Sidney's assistance, looks into the vent, and gasps. Through the vent, a nest with a mother bird and several hatchlings. Sidney, see? Not a ghost. Ella amazed. Mama, can we keep one? Sidney, no, honey, we can't. Ella, can I name one then? Sidney, I don't see why not. Which one? Ella, that one with the red stripe. Sidney, she's beautiful. What are you going to name her? Ella, I think I'll call her Gail. Hard cut to the one and only Gail Weathers, seated on a stage at a graduation ceremony, sporting a purple doctoral robe and hood, surrounded by rows of academics. Overhead, a banner reads, Corman School of Journalism, Class of 2028. Gail looks into the crowd of robed graduates and their guests, filming the ceremony and excitedly snapping pictures of her. Despite the enthusiasm, her eyes can't help but hone in on a group of crunchy protesters holding up signs that read, Gabriel and Denver didn't live to get their letters. No honorary doctorate for Ghoul Weathers. Gail's focus snaps back when she hears her name spoken by the college president at the podium. College president. Without further ado, it is my pleasure and privilege to confer this honorary doctor of journalism to the intrepid and trailblazing Gail Weathers. Gail stands to a cacophony of applause and some stray booing. The president places a ribboned medal around Gail's neck, then shakes her hand. They turn to a photographer on stage and pose for a picture. The president takes a step back and gestures toward the podium for Gail to make her speech. At the edge of the stage, facing the crowd with a protective scowl, is Gail's bodyguard, Angel. Gail approaches the podium and adjusts the microphone, but before she can speak, two ghost faces rush at her from either side of the stage. The crowd leaps to its feet, a mix of nervous laughter and shrieks. The faculty on stage jump out of their faculty chairs, save an elder pair of professors who don't seem to understand what all the fuss is. The ghost faces close in on Gail from either side and envelop her in something like a group bear hug. Angel leaps up onto the stage with a surprising agility to pull the ghost faces away. She yanks the mask off of the ghost faces to reveal two college bros who hoot and cheer for themselves and flash hang tens into the crowd as extra campus security jumps onto the stage to drag them off. The crowd boos them in unison, some throwing their graduation caps and programs at them. The professors all return back to their seats and the president motions for the crowd to sit back down. The president to Gail, I'm so terribly sorry about this. Gail ignores him, adjusts her robe, clears her throat, and presses her mouth to the podium mic. Gail. Well, in case anyone has ever wondered what it's like to be Gail Weathers. The crowd erupts into laughter and applause. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, front porch, day. Sidney is sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee and a book. Woman's voice off screen. Oh, I just finished that. You're going to love the twist at the end. You'll never see it coming. She looks up and smiles at Janet and Alice, a spry lesbian couple in their 70s sporting matching jogging suits. Sidney, I didn't know this book had a twist. Alice, well, that's the twist. Janet, Alice, how many times has our grandson said not to be a spoiler? Alice, no spoilers, Janet. A person can't be a spoiler. A spoiler is a concept. Janet, fine, then don't be a big mouth. Sidney crosses her arms and laughs, clearly enjoys the show. Janet continued, Sidney, honey, don't forget, I'm bringing dessert tonight. My world-famous upside-down cake. Alice, Janet, how many times did this woman tell you not to bring anything? Janet, yeah, well, that's like when someone says no gifts. They don't mean no gifts. They just mean they don't expect gifts. Alice, Sidney, her cake is delicious. I'll give her that. But if you choose to deny her entrance to your house tonight because she didn't follow the hostess's request, so be it. Sidney gets up from her rocker, walks to the front door. Sidney, you two should get back to your power walk. I'll see you tonight, with or without the upside-down cake. Interior, Corman University Auditorium, lobby, day. Hundreds of people in line to meet Gail, who is seated at a table in front of an enormous cutout of a recent author photo. Angel is at her side, keeping things in order. Angel shouting down the line. We need to keep this line moving, people. Have your phones open, ready for a picture, or your book open for a signature. Miss Weathers is on a tight schedule today and can only offer one. Two young women approach Gail, giddy, arm in arm. Young woman 1. Oh my God, Gail Weathers, we are freaking out. Gail smiles. Young woman 2. We paid a freshman to get here at 7 this morning to hold our place in line. Young woman 1. Well, not so much paid as we gave him a pair of our underwear. Gail raises her eyebrows. Gail. Resourceful. Angel reaches into her pocket to answer her buzzing phone. She turns her head away for privacy as Gail poses for a picture with the two young women. She approaches Gail, phone to her ear. Angel. It's Gwen Daly from the Chronicle. She says it's urgent. Gail reaches for the phone. Gail. Into the phone. Gwen. Long time. What's up? Gail's expression flattens as she listens. Gail. Where? Got it. Okay. Text me the address, all right? Gail hangs up, hands the phone back to Angel. Gail, we've got a detour to make. Angel, reading Gail's face. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence kitchen day. Sidney sits at her kitchen table with Lulu Peters, 40s, wiry figure, blonde bob, her friend and caterer. Lulu. So the butter lettuce curry chicken cups, plated or passed? Sidney. I just assumed it would all be pass-arounds. Lulu. Tricky to serve, bouillabaisse that way. Sidney. Bouillabaisse? Lulu, come on. Lulu, disappointed. What? You said I had free reign. Sidney. Yes, but I didn't think you'd take that to mean Provençal fish stew. These are our friends. We don't need to be too stuffy. Lulu. Ina Garten never dumbs down her cuisine for anyone, not even when she makes lunch for her landscapers. Sidney. Right. Lunch for her landscapers in front of her camera crew. Lulu. Gasps. Is that Ina Garten shade? Sid, just go into the kitchen, grab the heaviest pot you have, and put me out of my misery. Sidney laughs, exacerbated. Lulu. How about we go high-low? I'll serve the stew with a large tureen with oversized soup mugs, and I can make a stack of nicely chunked grilled cheeses. Besides, I already bought all of that beautiful fish. It'd be a sin to waste it. Sidney. Fine. High-low it is. Lulu claps. Gets up from the table. Perf! Yay, yay, yay! Okay, I'm off to the store. I'll be back at 4:30. Mark walks into the kitchen as Lulu exits. Mark. Chef? Lulu. Detective? Lulu winks at Sidney and waves goodbye. Mark walks over to the fridge, takes out a loaf of bread and some cold cuts to fix himself a sandwich. Mark. So what time's Gail's coming out, Cotillion? Sidney. 6. Mark. And she's fine with all those people being here? Sidney. Why wouldn't she be? Mark. I mean, I'm assuming she doesn't have many friends in the PTA. You think if you showed her cars in a lineup, she'd be able to pick out the minivan? Sidney. Of course. A minivan is just a news van with cuter passengers. Sidney's phone vibrates in front of her. Sidney. Speak of the devil, answers. Gail. Hi. Interior car backseat day. Gail sits in the back seat while Angel drives. Gail. Sid, listen. Slight change of plan. Intercut Sidney in the kitchen, Gail in the car. Sidney. Everything okay? You're still coming, aren't you? Gail. Yeah. I'll be there, but... Sidney. Good, because the girls have been practicing this dance routine they're dying to show you after. Gail. Sid. There was a murder last night. A couple of hours north of you. Sidney. Dismissive. Gail. Come on. I thought your days racing to the scene of every copycat were behind you. Gail. Right. It's probably nothing, but you know what I always say. Better safe than Sidney. Sidney. Bitch. Gail. Love you too. Sidney hangs up. Mark. Gail Weathers back on the case, huh? Sidney. She can't help herself, I guess. Mark. I'll put in a call to my guys, see if they've heard anything. Sidney. Sure, if you want. Mark. Gail hasn't really reported since her show was canceled. Yeah? Sidney. No. And do not use the word canceled around her. Mark. Right. I wouldn't want to trigger her. Sidney. And triggered. Don't use that word either. Mark sits down at the table across from Sidney, settles in to eat his sandwich. Mark. How about you write me a little cheat sheet of what I can and can't say to Her Majesty? Sidney grabs his sandwich out of his hands. Sidney. Nah, it's way more fun to watch you step on the Gail mine. Mark. Sidney takes a bite, then passes it back to Mark. Mark. You too. Such an unlikely little duo, like something out of a movie. Sidney gets up from the table. Sidney. Says the detective I married after I thought he was trying to kill me. Can't get any more Screenplay 101 than that. Sidney bends forward and kisses Mark, then licks a bit of the mayonnaise off of his lip. Mark. Thank God for cliches. They kiss again. Sidney starts for the door, but Mark grabs her by the arm and pulls her back toward him. Sidney, I beg your pardon? Mark, as long as you don't make me beg. Mark unzips Sidney's hoodie, revealing a sports bra. Sidney, hey now, I have Lex in 20 minutes. Mark kisses her neck, then her chest. Mark, so give me 10. Go 5 over the speed limit. Everyone wins. Mark nuzzles his face into her chest. She moans in pleasure, throws her hoodie to the ground. Exterior Newton Township Elementary Outdoor Cafeteria. Grace, Sidney and Mark's eldest daughter, sits at a picnic table with 3 friends, all 11 to 12-year-old. Bryce, effeminate, bespectacled. Carrie, classic tomboy. And Francesca, a future homecoming queen. Francesca, Bryce, an AI boyfriend? That's so tragic. Bryce, he's not my boyfriend. Francesca, he's not even a he. It's like an algorithm or whatever. Carrie, through a mouthful of fries. Yeah, that's the bad news, bro. Like catfishing yourself. Bryce, forget I said anything. Francesca, Grace, tell him. Grace, concerned. Bryce, you know, Grant isn't real, right? Bryce shrugs. Grace, so if Grant tells you, like, shoot your parents, you're not going to, right? Carrie cackles. Francesca gasps. Bryce, no, but I totally do that on my own, Mendez style. Carrie, dude, you're dark. Boy, off screen. Did someone say dork? Because I definitely see one. Plus a dyke and the daughter of a psycho. Grace snaps around and rolls her eyes at Jeff, way too big to be a 5th grader. Carrie, eat shit, Jeff. Jeff, when you're done hogging the plate, Carrie. Francesca, why do you hang out with these losers? Why don't you come to my table sometime? Francesca, because my mom says I can't talk to 5th graders who are old enough to drive. Grace laughs, high fives Francesca. Grace, good one. Jeff, I don't remember asking Dahmer's daughter for her goddamn opinion. Grace gets up from the table, gets right in Jeff's face. The picnic area gets quiet. Everyone is watching. Grace, listen, you ignoramus. You're not funny. You're not cool. And no one gives a crap what you have to say. And by the way, shit for brains, my mother has never killed anyone who didn't deserve it. Jeff, whatever. My uncle used to live in Woodsboro. They all know the truth. They all know she faked all that shit for fame. Jeff turns to the watching crowd. Jeff, and that she was a slut, just like Grace's dead grandma. He turns back around and Grace sucker punches him right in the nuts. Jeff falls to the ground, cupping his groin and moaning in pain. Grace kicks him square in the chest. Match cut to interior training studio, same time. Sidney kicks Lex, her brick-bodied trainer, in the chest. He grabs her foot and twists her around. Sidney kicks away from his grip, but falls flat on her chest. She rolls over and finds Lex standing above her, his foot pressed onto her neck. Lex, you let yourself fall forward and I gained on you in 2 seconds. He steps away and offers Sidney an arm, helps her up. Sidney, breathless. My core isn't what it used to be. 2 C-sections, a couple of stabs to the gut. Lex, hey, you lose some in one spot, you gain somewhere else, all right? Sidney nods. Lex, take 5. Get some water. I'm going to use the loop. Sidney walks over to the bench and reaches into her duffel bag. She retrieves her water bottle and her cell. On the phone display, a voicemail from Newton, main office. Sidney's face drops as she listens to the message. Lex walks back into the studio. Lex, everything okay? Sidney, yeah, it's Grace. She got into a fight. Lex, a fight? Her first, I assume? Sidney, that I know of. She's so angry lately, but she won't talk about it. Lex, I was an angry kid too, but I think they kind of expect that from boys. Girls' pain, it can go under the radar sometimes, right? Sidney nods. Sidney, look, I'm sorry to cut this short, but I have to get over to the school. Lex, of course. Sidney, charge me for the whole session, okay? Lex, of course. Sidney laughs. Lex's smile fades suspiciously as Sidney exits his studio. Exterior, Will and Stewart's house. Day. Angel and Gail pull up in front of Will and Stewart's house. At the bottom of the drive, Gwen, full of nervous energy, reaches to shake Gail's hand. The man beside her, a bit older, balding, salt and pepper hair, steps forward and does the same. Gwen. Gail, this is Detective Weaver. Detective Weaver. Nice to meet you, Miss Weathers. I've long been a fan. Gail looks around the quiet street. Gail, are you with local? Weaver shakes his head no. Gail, got it. Shall we? Interior, Will and Stewart's house. Foyer, Day. Gail, Gwen, and Weaver enter the house. Officer Weaver, wait a sec. Here you go. Weaver reaches into his pocket and pulls out plastic shoe covers. Gail takes one reluctantly. She awkwardly places a hand on Gwen's shoulder for balance as she slips the covers over her Manolo Blahniks. Gwen, watch your step, Gail. Gail, I can do jumping jacks in these things. Carrie Bradshaw's got nothing on me. Officer Weaver, no, she means the blood. Gail looks down and grimaces at the shocking amount of blood puddled and splattered against the light hardwood floors. Officer Weaver continued, follow me. Interior Will and Stewart's house. Living room, day. Gwen covers her eyes and turns toward the wall. Gwen, once was enough for me. Gail's mouth drops open at the sight of Kayla and Norman's dead bodies, even more horrible in the light of day. Gwen, the young woman is Kayla Bartell, the nanny to Arlo, Will and Stuart Hooper's son. Gail. And Ghostface? Officer Weaver, Norman Wu, their neighbor. Seems he'd be stalking the victim. Made about a dozen calls to the house last night while the Hoopers were gone. Gail, how long did she work here? Officer Weaver, 2 weeks. Gail, confused. 2 weeks? And it escalated this quickly? Gwen, Gail, do you recognize the girl? Gail takes another look. She shakes her head no. Officer Weaver walks over to the carpet near the bodies, points a gloved finger to the blood-soaked photograph. Gail walks over, bends down to take a closer look, and gasps. Gail, holy shit, she's Sidney Prescott's nanny. Gwen, was. She left a few weeks ago to start working for the Hoopers. Gail, they've had a few nannies over the years. I never met this one. Where are the Hoopers now? Gwen, at their lake house. One of their fathers is a state senator. They're working with the local PD to figure out how to roll this out. Officer Weaver, the gentlemen are, shall we say, partiers? They gathered their things, their baby, and skipped town immediately. Gail, Jesus, baby was here for this. Gwen, Gail, I'm giving you this heads up as a courtesy, since I know you're close to Sidney Prescott. But as soon as local goes in, I've got the exclusive. It's going to go national. You know that. Gail, understood. Any reason to think this isn't open and shut? The killer being dead and all? Gwen and Weaver look to each other for answers. Officer Weaver, can't say for sure yet, but Mr. Wu's place didn't have a stitch of Ghostface memorabilia. Unless you count his vinyl of the original cast recording of Stab the Musical. Exterior, Newton Township Elementary, day. The dismissal bell rings, signaling the end of another day. Hundreds of children pour out of the picturesque Newton Township Middle School, some lining up for yellow school buses, others running to their waiting parents. Sadie Kruger, 18, brunette, doe-eyed, but badass, and her boyfriend, Max Lorelei, also 18, faded leather jacket, hair slicked into a wave mid-crash, hold hands as they make their way through a boisterous crowd. Max, man, all these brats, gestures like he's cutting off his junk. Vasectomy fuel, Sadie, I kind of love their energy. It reminds me of being that age, when shit was simple. Max looks away from Sadie. Immediate shift in vibe. Sadie, sorry, that was insensitive. Max squeezes her hand and smiles. Max, nah, you're good. Come here. He takes her chin in his hand and kisses her. Sadie places a hand on his shoulder and pushes him away. Sadie, Sidney, hey! Sidney approaches, wraps Sadie in a warm hug. Max sheepishly puts his hands in his pocket. Sadie, Sid, this is my boyfriend Max. Sidney, right. Hey Max, nice to meet you. Max nods awkwardly. Sadie, did I miss a text or something about pickups? Sidney, no. Grace got into some trouble. I'm here to see your mom and Principal Lee. Sadie, Grace? That's so unlike her. Sidney, I'm gonna head in. I'll see you tonight. Sadie, for sure, yeah. Sidney, Max, you're welcome too. Max looks to Sadie for an answer. Sadie, Sid's having this dinner party thing. I'm going with my parents. Max, sounds fun? Sidney, uninterested in their teen tension, doesn't wait for an answer. She briskly walks into the school. Max, I mean, do you want me there? Sadie, I do, but Sadie, Arthur's mom is catering it. Max shrugs. So, I remember her food being bomb. Sadie, well, Arthur will be there too. You know, he helps her out. Max, I got nothing against the kid. He's got the problem with me. Sadie, and now with me. Max, you can't feel bad about that shit, Sade. We're only young once. We only live once. He knows that just as well as I do. Sadie smiles and nods unconvincingly. Max, anyway, I got a jet. See you tonight at the Prescott compound. Are there like armed guards? Sadie, no, just 2 precocious daughters and a hot dad. Max, hot dad, shit. Now I'm definitely coming. Sadie waves to Max as he walks off, heads into the school. Principal Lee, pre-lap. Violence is never the answer. Interior, Newton Township Elementary, Principal Lee's office, day. Sidney and Grace sit diagonally from one another in chairs at the end of Principal Lee's desk. Sidney sits stiffly at the edge of her seat, while Grace is slumped in hers, chin buried in her palm, eyes glued to the wall. Principal James Lee, late 30s, Korean American, awkward, handsome, Clark Kent aesthetic, leans forward in his desk. Sharon Kruger is spitting image of her daughter Sadie, Grace's teacher and Sidney's close friend, sit beside him, looking on with concern. Sharon. Grace, sweetie, we know what Jeff said was hurtful. You have every reason to be angry. Principal Lee, yes, but violence is not. Grace, grumbling. You already said that. Sidney, Grace. Principal Lee, Ms. Prescott, I wish we didn't have to do this, especially since Grace is such a wonderful student and community member. But as per school policy, we're going to have to suspend her. Sidney brings a hand to the bridge of her nose, closes her eyes, and nods. Sidney, of course, we understand. Grace crosses her arms, frowns. Principal Lee, it's just for a day, and it'll be in school. Grace will take her work to the library. She'll eat lunch in Miss Kruger's classroom. Sharon and Sid lock eyes. Grace, can we go now? Interior Newton Township Elementary, Sharon's classroom later. Inside the perfectly decorated, cozy classroom adorned with student artwork and affirmative messages, Grace angrily shoves her things from her cubby into her backpack. Sidney and Sharon lean against the nearby desks, looking on. Sidney, hey, you want me to have to pay to replace your textbooks too? Grace, it isn't fair. And nothing even happens to Jeff? Sidney, well, he did get punched in the balls and kicked in the throat. Grace, it was his chest. And who cares? It's not like he has a heart in there anyways. Sadie off screen. And if you think he's bad, you should see his Neanderthal of a brother. I'm pretty sure he still eats glue sticks. Grace lights up to see Sadie enter the classroom. Grace runs over to Sadie and wraps her arms around her. Grace, are you taking me to gymnastics? Sadie looks to Sidney. I don't know. Am I? Sidney crosses her arms, uncertain, sighs, gives Sharon a what do you think look. Sharon, I think that's a good idea. Let Grace cool off. Shift her focus. Would also give Mom time to get ready for her dinner party. By the way, is there like a dress code or anything? Sidney, bright blazers and 6-inch heels, unless you want to get bounced by Gail's bodyguard. Sharon frowns. I thought mom jeans and a sundress were back in fashion. Sadie, they are, for me. Sidney, Gracie, come here. Grace walks over to Sidney. Sidney pulls her in close. Sharon gets up and joins Sadie by the door to give them some space. Sidney, I know you were just sticking up for me today. I'm sorry you had to do that. Grace sheepishly pulls away from Sidney's embrace, grabs her school bag, and walks toward the door. Grace to Sadie as she's exiting. If I'm late, I'll get the broken locker. Sadie gives Grace a sir, yes, sir salute, then gives Sharon a quick goodbye kiss on the cheek before hurrying out of the room behind Grace. Sidney tries to covertly wipe a tear from the corner of her eye, but Sharon sees. Sharon, hey, don't let it get to you. I honestly thought Sadie was going to go full Lizzie Borden at her age. Ross and I locked our bedroom door for months. Sidney laughs appreciatively. She wants to believe her. She gets up and hugs Sharon goodbye. Sidney, see you tonight. Sharon, can't wait. Exterior Newton Township Elementary, Sharon's classroom. As Sidney exits the hallway, she jumps at the sight of Principal Lee standing right around the corner. Eavesdropping, perhaps. Principal Lee, sorry, I didn't realize you were still here. Sidney, it's fine. Have a good night. Principal Lee nods as Sidney continues down the hall. He looks into Sharon's classroom and watches silently as she erases her board. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room, night. The dinner party is in full swing. Roughly 24 friends and neighbors are eating, drinking, and laughing. Among them, Alice and Janet sitting together on the couch, beaming as Ella very seriously performs an endearingly uncoordinated dance routine for them. Grace, Sadie, and Max sit on the ground next to the couch, hovered in a circle around a board game. Grace is in her element, hanging with the big kids, smitten with both. At the bar, Mark is deep in conversation with Sharon's husband, Ross Kruger, late 40s, fit, weathered, but still boyish somehow. Mark hands Ross a beer. Mark, so, you're really thinking about leaving the firm? Ross, looks like it's heading in that direction. Yeah, I just can't with the constant travel. Sharon used to be good with it, but when I think about how much she's handled on her own over the years, what she's given up to let me do my thing, I don't know. She hides it well, but there's resentment there, man. Mark's face falls a bit. He understands this all too well. He takes a sip of his drink. Ross, And Sadie, forget it. I feel like I get back to town and she's got an entirely new personality before I stopped being pissed off with the last one. Mark, laughing. Wow. Thought we were almost out of the woods with that. Guess between Ella and Grace, I've got what? Another good decade or more of eye rolling and door slamming? Ross. I'd call that a conservative estimate, brother. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, night. Arthur Peters, 17, strikingly handsome, but wiry and pale, like a 90s Calvin Klein model, peers out from behind the kitchen door, watching with anger as Max and Sadie canoodle. Lulu off screen. Arthur, can you help me with this, sweetie? Arthur ignores her as she struggles with a heavy, hot sheet pan of cookies. The sheet pan tips, and the cookies begin to slide to one side. Lulu. Oh shit, Arthur! Arthur snaps out of his daze and hurries over to his mom. He reaches for a pot holder and grabs the sheet pan from her. He puts down the cookies on the counter. Arthur. Sorry. Lulu. I told you didn't have to come. I could have asked one of the girls. Arthur. I know, I'm sorry. I just didn't want to seem like a pussy. Lulu. Arthur, language. Sidney enters the kitchen and Arthur stiffens up. Sidney, please don't stay in here all night. Go enjoy yourselves. Lulu, we just had to get these plated and then we're all set. Sidney walks over to the counter and takes a cookie. Sidney, hey, Arthur, you know your friend Max is here, yeah? Arthur, we're not really... Yeah, I know. I'll tell you about it later, Sid. Sidney nods as she puts 2 and 2 together. Arthur, I'm gonna go get some fresh air. As Arthur exits the kitchen, Mark pops his head in. Mark, guess who finally pulled up? Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, foyer, night. Grace and Ella rush to the front door as Gail enters. Grace and Ella, Aunt Gal, you're here! Before she can put down the multiple shopping bags in her hands, Grace and Ella attack Gail with ecstatic hugs. Gail, quick, take these and hide them in your room before your mother, Sidney, off screen, asks why you brought so many gifts. Ella and Grace abscond with the bags like dogs with bones. Gail, I need to stay on their good side, so I have someone to pull the plug someday. Sidney, Gail, Jesus. Sidney grabs Gail and they embrace tightly. When they pull apart, we see most of the party huddled together to get a good look at the real Gail Weathers. Sidney, everybody, this is Gail. Gail, this is Gail. Everybody, hello. Into Sidney's ear. I need to talk to you privately. Before Sidney can respond, a trio of starstruck women approach, each with a different Gail Weathers book in hand. Sidney, Gail, this is Mimi, Callie, and Debbie Ann from book club. Mimi, 40s, bubbly, playfully brings a hand to her mouth as though she's whispering. Mimi, it's really more of a wine club. One of these days we'll get around to the book. Callie, 30s, reserved, and Debbie Ann, 50s, perpetually buzzed. Both laugh as if it's the funniest thing they've ever heard. Sidney smiles and tilts her head at Gail as if to say, I know, but they're sweet. Gail, please tell me my book isn't this month's selection. Callie, oh, of course not. We're strictly literary fiction. Debbie Ann, with the occasional romancy thrown in there. Gail, furrowing her brow. Romanta what? Debbie Ann, I was addicted to Top Story. Every night with dinner, like clockwork. Mimi, can I just say, justice for 60 minutes too. Callie, it wasn't a good morning for me until I put on Good Morning with Gail Weathers. Mimi, we promised Sidney we wouldn't be lame around you, but everyone except Gail laughs. Mimi holding up her book. A signature would mean the world. Sidney, why don't we let Gail settle in? Debbie Ann, your book about Dewey deserved win that motherfucking Pulitzer. Callie and Mimi are mortified. Gail smirks, places a hand on Debbie Ann's shoulder. Gail, I like you. To Sidney, Sid, kitchen, now. These women watch as Sidney and Gail walk away arm in arm. Debbie Ann, well, you two had zero chill. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence. Kitchen, night. Mark and Sidney sit at the kitchen table side by side, a shared look of shock on their faces from the news Gail has just dropped on them. Mark, my God. Sidney, I can't believe it. Gail, Mark, Sid, was there a reason she left? Was it abrupt? I see you don't have a new nanny yet. Mark, she violated her NDA. Gail raises her eyebrows to say, tell me more. Sidney, she had a nanny influencer account we didn't know about. Mark, she recorded something from our porch and it had the reflection of our house number. Within hours, we had ghost face calls, masks sent to the house. Gail, why didn't you tell me? Mark, I had my guys look into it. All pranks. We had her posts scrubbed and she left pretty quickly after that. We even worked with an agency to vet her new family. Sidney, stoic. Whose house was she murdered in? Gail leans across the table and places her hand on Sid's hand. Striking visual of both Gail and Mark touching her at once. Are they supporting her together? Is there some competition? Gail. Sid, for once, they know who did it. She fought back and she got the fucker. No one is coming after you. Gail and Mark, at the same time. Not while I'm here. Sidney. I had a missed call from her to one of my side cells. Mark. Wait, what? Gail. When? Sidney. Last night. I saw it this morning. There was no message. I figured it was an accidental dial. They abruptly stop speaking and look up as Sharon and Ross enter the kitchen. Sharon. Sorry to interrupt. Ross. Y'all are out of ice. Need me to run out and grab some? Mark gets up from the table. No, there's more in the garage. Ross to Gail. Wow, Gail Weathers. So cool to meet you in the flesh. Gail gives a perfunctory smile. Sharon. Gail, hi, I'm Sharon. I'm Gail, Grace's teacher. Sid's bestie. I've heard all about you. Sharon smiles, genuinely flattered. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, front porch, night. Arthur sits on the porch in one of the rocking chairs, looking out onto the dark, quiet street. Behind him, we see a blurry, shadowy figure approach. Sadie. Hey. Arthur jumps up from the rock in surprise. Arthur. You scared the shit out of me. Sadie. Sorry. Sadie reaches into her jeans and takes out her vape. Sadie. You want? Arthur reaches for it, then pulls his arm back. Arthur. Has he put his mouth on it? Sadie. Arthur, come on. Don't be like that. Arthur turns away from her. Arthur. Good. Sadie. Dude, why are you still so mad at me? We weren't any good together as a couple. We were better as friends. You said it yourself. Arthur. I know I did. Sadie. So where's my friend? Arthur. I'm sorry. I just can't be around you if you're with him. I fucking called it. He did this with everything our whole lives. I should have never let you guys hang out. Sadie. So what? I have to dump Max for you to be my friend again? Do you know how gross that sounds? Arthur doesn't respond or look at her. Very in his feelings. Sadie steps closer and puts a hand on his back. Sadie. This has been killing me, Arthur. I feel like I'm this horrible horror who came between two best friends. Arthur. We were never best friends. They just stuck us together because we both had dead dads. Sadie. I don't believe that. I know how much you two love each other. Arthur starts for the door. Arthur. Look, if this is about your neurotic need to be forgiven and make sure no one ever is mad at you, then fine. You've been absolved. But when it comes to me and Max, just stay in your lane, all right? Sadie. I don't mean to, overstep. It's just I was talking to my mom and she said if your gut says you can help two people work it out, you should always. Arthur stops at the door, spins around. Arthur. Oh, your mom, of all people, cares about bringing people together? That's fucking rich, man. Sadie steps closer to him, crosses her arms. Sadie, confused. What's that supposed to mean? My mom's done nothing but been good to you, Artie. Why would you say that with such disdain? Arthur, whatever. Forget I said anything. Arthur tries to go inside, but Sadie isn't letting go. She grabs his arm and pulls him back. Sadie, tell me. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room, night. The party is thriving. Alice and Janet, reading glasses sloping down their noses, have Mark and Ross cornered, each man helping them figure out something on their respective iPhones. Gail, nursing a glass of bourbon, is flanked on the sofa by Grace and Ella, who are going through the contents of Gail's Birkin bag. Ella, very intently, pushes a diamond bracelet up her skinny arm and frowns when it slides down. Grace holds up a compact mirror and applies eyeshadow from Gail's palette. Gail, that blue's a disaster for your skin tone, Gracie. Go with the pink. Gail unhooks her diamond bracelet and hands it to Ella. Gail, let's swap. Sidney, Sharon, Lulu, Callie, Debbie Ann, and Mimi sit together at the dining table watching Gail and the kids. Callie, could she be any sweeter with those girls? Debbie Ann, who would have thought in 1,000 years this is where you and Gail Weathers would be? I mean, talk about life throwing surprises at you. Sidney shrugs, seems a bit tired of this conversation. Sharon, saving the day. Well, at this point, they've been friends longer than anything else, so Sidney flashes Sharon an appreciative smile. Mimi, well, she's everything I expected her to be, and then some. Callie, oh yeah. Debbie Ann, no doubt. Lulu, I don't know. I thought she'd be a little different, sitting here with us, telling us all about her fabulous life, more of a girl's girl. Sid looks adoringly at Gail with her daughters. Sidney, she is. Just some girls. Suddenly, the front door swings open, and Sadie enters in a huff, very distraught, clearly crying. Arthur slinks in behind her, his head down. Max steps out of the kitchen with a soda in his hand. He hurries over to Sadie and takes her hand. Max, staring daggers at Arthur. What? What did he say to you? Sadie pulls her hand away from Max and trudges over to Mark and Ross. Sadie tugs on Ross's arm, and he instinctively puts an arm around her kindly while lecturing Alice and Janet. Ross, ladies, you've got to randomize these passwords. If you use your address or your grandkid's birthday for everything, you're asking for trouble. Sadie, Dad, I want to go home. Ross, Sadie, one sec. Sadie, shouting now, Dad, let's go. Sharon, mortified, gets up from the table and hurries over to Sadie and Ross. She puts an arm around Sadie, who immediately pulls away from her in disgust. Sharon, sweetie, what's going on? Sadie, I'm not talking to you. Ross, hey, don't speak to your mother that way. Sharon, are you feeling all right? To Ross, I should take her home. Sadie, I'm not fucking sick, and I'm not going anywhere with you. Dad. Sharon, honey, you're making a scene. You're going to ruin Sidney's party. Sadie, laughing through the sobs. Oh, I'm going to ruin her party? You're the one fucking her husband. A collective gasp and then hush in the room. Ross gives Sharon a what the hell is she talking about look. Then he turns to Mark, who is leaned against the wall, his hand clasped over his mouth. Sharon looks over her shoulder and sees Sidney standing right behind her, a mix of shock and white, hot anger on her face. Sharon, oh God, Sid, I... Sidney looks to Mark, whose eyes are glued to the floor. She instinctively runs from the room. Mark, Sid, wait. Lulu gets up from the table and rushes over to Arthur. She grabs his arm. Lulu, Arthur, what have you done? Arthur pulls away from Lulu and rushes out of the house. Gail gets up from the sofa and addresses the crowd. Gail, all right, party's over, staring at Sharon. There's the door. Sadie collapses into her father's arms, sobbing. Ross guides her to the front door, his eyes fixed angrily on Sharon. Sharon, shamefaced, follows from a safe distance. Gail looks to Ella and Grace, sad and smushed into one another on the sofa. Gail, girls, why don't you go and get ready for bed? I'll come up in a few minutes to tuck you in. All right? Ella, will you stay here tonight? Grace, yeah, don't go back to the hotel. Gail, of course I will. Now go on up. The girls obediently do as Gail tells them. She turns her attention to the remaining guests as they gather their belongings a touch too slowly for her taste. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence front porch night. As the guests wait their turn to exit the house, a bottleneck has formed as a chivalrous Max, a tipsy Alice, and a frantic Janet down the steps. Gail steps out onto the porch. Gail, excuse me, everyone. All of the chatter immediately ceases as Gail holds court. Gail, I know I just met all of you tonight, but for Sidney to let you into her heart and into her home, it means she really trusts you. Gail inserts herself between the book club trio and puts her arms around them. They are overcome with sudden warmth. Gail, lucky for her, I don't trust a single one of you. So mark my words. If you repeat anything that's happened here tonight, to a blog, to the press, to your goddamn priest, I promise you, I will dig up every indiscretion, every traffic ticket, every embarrassing detail of your life and make sure it lives on like Jason fucking Voorhees. Gail plants a kiss on Callie's forehead and walks inside. Gail, shutting the door. Have a good night. Interior Prescott Kitchen residence foyer. Gail closes the door, turns around, jumps in fright at the sight of Lulu and Arthur standing in the foyer, catering trays in their hands. Gail, Jesus Christ! Lulu, we're sorry. We're just cleaning up the kitchen. We heard your instructions through the door. You don't have to worry about us. Gail cocks her head at Arthur and purses her lips suspiciously. He gulps, near tears. Arthur, Mom, let's get out of here. Gail opens the door to let them out, closes it again. She leans against the door to catch her breath and have a think. Interior, Prescott Kincaid residence, bedroom, night. Sidney sits on a wing-back chair in the corner of the bedroom, facing the window. Mark stands at the opposite corner, tension so thick it could bend a chainsaw. Mark softly. Sid, look at me, please. Sid doesn't respond. Furious and frozen as a statue, Mark, with tears in his eyes, exits the room. Sidney watches from the window as her party guests stand in the street, slowly pulling themselves away from each other, their body language betraying their animated chatter. Sidney wraps her fingers around the pull cord, yanks it, and releases until the window blinds come slapping down. Debbie Ann and Mimi hurry up the porch steps to Debbie Ann's front door. Callie lingers at the street level. Debbie Ann, I've had to pee for like an hour, but I didn't want to miss the show. Thought I'd have to squat in Lululemon's punch bowl. Mimi, I just can't believe it. Debbie Ann, oh honey, This is just what men like Mark do. When you're that intense all the time, it means you're ready to fuck at all times. Haven't you ever seen a Michael Douglas movie? Mimi. Honestly, I meant Sharon. What was she thinking? Sidney has literally killed family members for less. Debbie Ann. She was probably fucking Mark to fuck Sidney. Single white female, much. Debbie Ann fumbles with her keys. She hands them to Mimi. Debbie Ann. Here, I'm too drunk for this. Mimi smacks Debbie Ann's backside to move out of the way. Callie. I'm just so sad for Sid. She's been through so much. She doesn't deserve this. I didn't deserve it either. Stares off, now sobbing. Oh, Alan, you piece of shit. Debbie Ann to Mimi. Here we go with this one to Callie. Callie, sweets, let's go inside and open up some wine. Up, Callie. Sidney is our friend. I don't want to go into your house and gossip about her all night. We should be thinking about how to be there for her and the girls. Protect her. Debbie Ann and Mimi shared an exacerbated look. Mimi. Well, she's got Sarah Connor in a cocktail dress staying with her. I don't think we're going to be welcome back for a while. Callie drops down onto the bottom step, leans her head against the railing. Callie, give me a minute. I just want to keep looking at the moon. She's clearly looking at Sidney's house. Debbie Ann. Whatever. My bladder is about to pop out of my Spanx. Debbie Ann rushes into the house. Mimi follows. She leaves the door cracked open for Callie. Interior Debbie Ann's house, kitchen, night. Mimi stands in Debbie Ann's kitchen, bent over and looking through her woefully empty wine mini fridge. She pulls a bottle out and stands up to examine it. Mimi grimaces. Yellowtail. George must be late with the alimony again. Mimi bends down to put the bottle back in the fridge. Ghostface stands behind her at the kitchen entrance. Mimi pulls another bottle, a much fancier red, and walks over to the edge of the kitchen. Ghostface slinks silently across the kitchen behind her. Mimi. Hey, Deb, can I open this Barlow, or are you saving it for something? No response. Mimi. Hey, Deb! Mimi puts the bottle down on the kitchen island, fishes for her phone in her pocket, dials Debbie Ann. A grinding buzz across the marble island as Debbie Ann's phone rings. Mimi. Well then, Mimi stops when she realizes the front door she left ajar is now closed and locked. She walks to the door, unlocks it, and swings it open. Callie is no longer sitting on the bottom porch step. Out on the porch. Mimi steps onto the porch, looks around. No sign of Callie. Mimi steps back inside, closes the door, jumps at Debbie Ann standing beside her. Debbie Ann. What's all the screaming about? Where's Callie? You two get into it? Mimi. I was asking about the wine. Callie must have left. Debbie Ann walks over to the kitchen island and picks up her phone. On the screen, multiple missed calls from Callie. Debbie Ann. Man, she was drunker than I thought. Drunker than me. Mimi grazes the kitchen island with one hand in the spot where she left the wine bottle. Where did it go? Debbie Ann plops down on the sofa, lets out a very unladylike belch. She puts her phone to her ear. Debbie Ann to Mimi. You getting a bottle or what? Into the phone. Here, Callie. Where the fuck are you? Come right back this instant, you empathetic cunt. Suddenly the doorbell rings. Debbie Ann. Ah, there she is. Mimi, be a love and get that. Mimi walks back to the front door. Opens it. Darkness. Mimi calls to Debbie Ann. No one's out here. Mimi slams the door. Locks it. Debbie Ann. Yeah, I've got this new Wi-Fi doorbell bullshit. Sometimes it just goes off. The worst is when it happens in the middle of the night. Mimi. That must be scary. Debbie Ann. I sleep through it anyway. Mimi. Deb, what if there's an emergency? Debbie Ann. I should be so lucky. Mimi. Wine? Mimi walks back to the kitchen island. Gasps at the sight of the wine bottle back where she previously saw it. She sighs in relief. Smiles. Turns to Debbie and points to the bottle. Mimi, quietly. Callie, she's here. She's fucking with us. Debbie Ann takes a deep puff off of a vape, shrugs. Debbie Ann, why? Mimi, what do you mean why? Why does anyone play a prank on anyone? To scare them. Debbie Ann, well, I'm not getting up from this couch, so unless she's hiding in my ottoman, good luck to her. Mimi walks to the kitchen and starts opening drawers. Mimi, where's your wine cork? Before Debbie Ann can respond, Ghostface jumps up from behind the couch and drives the wine cork into Debbie Ann's neck. He pulls it out, blood splattering everywhere. Debbie Ann, in a complete shock, places her hand over the wound. But before she can even get a look at her assailant, Ghostface drives it back in and stabs. Again and again and again. Debbie Ann, lifeless, slips off the sofa. At the thud of her body hitting the ground, Mimi looks up and sees Ghostface running at her. She screams in terror. Mimi runs down the length of the kitchen island. Ghostface wraps around the other end and bolts toward her. Mimi has no choice but to run into the dining room. She pulls down the dining chairs around her to obstruct Ghostface, but ends up barricading herself. As Ghostface starts to furiously pull the chairs apart, Mimi climbs onto the dining room table and runs across it. She manages to leap over Ghostface, but he's quick to pull a knife from his robe and slice into Mimi's thigh. As Mimi lands on the ground, she loses her balance, falls to her knees. Ghostface gains on her quickly and pulls her backwards, grabbing a fistful of her hair. Mimi reaches her hand along the side of her head, slides a finger in, and unclips her hair extensions. Ghostface stumbles backwards, ponders the hair in his hands for a moment, and is quickly back up on his feet, bounding after Mimi, who is making her way out the front door. Exterior Debbie Ann's house, front porch, night. The front door swings open. Mimi bolts out. Her lungs suck up the fresh evening air as she attempts to scream. Instead, a shrill gasp of pain and a crossing of the eyes as Ghostface's knife hammers into the top of her skull. In one swift move, he jerks Mimi's body back into the house and slams the door shut. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence. Bedroom, dawn. Sidney in bed, wide awake. The gray morning light emanates from behind her drawn blinds like a staticky TV set. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence hallway. Sidney walks down the dark hallway and peeks into Mark's office, where he lay curled up on a leather love seat, his long limbs barely fit on, a blanket bunched up at his feet. Sidney steps into the office and instinctively picks the blanket up. She's about to drape it over Mark, then stops herself, lets the blanket fall back to the ground. Back in the hallway, Sidney softly pushes open the door to the girls' bedroom. Their beds are unmade and empty. She glides down the hall. Her instincts are kicking in hard and fast, and then down the steps. She slows as the sound of the television and clanking of cereal bowls draws closer. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room, morning. Gail, Ella, and Grace are curled up under a blanket, multiple boxes of cereal and a carton of milk on the coffee table, the TV on at a respectable volume. Ella, morning, Mommy. Sidney walks over to the couch and kisses each girl on the head. Ella, and what about Aunt Gail? Gail taps the top of her head. Sidney laughs, kisses her too. Sidney, you're up early? Grace, we couldn't sleep. Sidney, neither could I. Gail, Ella insisted we go out at the butt crack to take a look at these birds. Sidney, what'd you think? Gail, crunching through a handful of Fruit Loops. Doesn't look anything like me. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, moments later. Grace enters while Sidney is putting on a pot of coffee. Grace, Mom? Sidney, yeah, honey. Grace, can I stay home from school today? Sidney, you can't. You're suspended, remember? Grace, can't I just be suspended on Monday? Sidney's silence is a firm answer. Grace, but they'll make me eat lunch and share in Mrs. Kruger's room. I don't want to see her. I don't want to see her ever again. Sidney throws her arms around a sobbing Grace, desperate to console her. Mark walks into the kitchen and Grace goes quiet. She pushes past him and storms out of the kitchen. Grace runs past the living room and up the stairs. Gail pats Ella on the knee. Gail, go and check on your sister, all right? Ella nods, shovels one last heaving spoonful of cereal into her mouth, then heads upstairs. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, morning. Sidney and Mark in the middle of a heated exchange. Mark, Sid, we need to talk about this. Sidney, no, we need to figure out how to convince our kid to go to school every day, since you've managed to shit where you eat in ways I could never have fucking fathomed. Mark, I know I messed up. Sidney, messed up? Wow. You're being awfully easy on yourself. Mark, I fucked up. I know I did. It's the biggest regret of my life. But Sidney, you have to believe me. We didn't mean to hurt you or Ross. It just happened. Sidney puts her hand up to Mark's face. Sidney, wait. Stop. We? So this was a mistake? Or was this a relationship? Mark closes his eyes, swallows. Both. I guess it was both. I mean, we already had a relationship. We're friends. So I don't know. It's complicated. Sidney winces as he speaks. It physically hurts her to hear this. Sidney, are you two currently making this complicated mistake? Mark, no. You have to believe me, Sidney. It was only a few times. Sidney, when was the last time? Mark, when you were in New York, I think. Sidney, you think? You're not sure if the last time you fucked one of my closest friends and our child's teacher and the mother of the kid we've known since she was 10 was when a psycho tried to fucking throw me off of a skyscraper? When I literally killed to get back to you and the kid's alive? That's maybe when you were off making this mistake? Mark furrows his brow. Mark, you mean when I begged you for the third goddamn time to think of me and the girls and not swoop in like Tarantino's Bride with a kill list to save a bunch of fucking strangers? When I'd hoped your maternal instincts would supersede your twisted fucking hero complex? Sidney stares at him, mouth agape, stung by his interpretation of past events. Gail, off screen. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say I can take the girls to school. It's not a problem. Mark, you don't have to do that. Gail, well, Angel's on the clock, and she ain't cheap. So might as well let her moonlight as a chauffeur. Also, I know there's no good time to say this, so I'll just say it. I just got a text from a local source of mine. Mark crosses his arms, switching into detective mode. Mark, about what? Gail, they found a mountain of Instagram DMs between Kayla and a blank account, sexual in nature. Mark, and? Gail, they were able to trace the IP to Newton. Sidney smacks her hand on the kitchen counter, turns away from Mark. Mark, Sid, you can't be serious. Angrily at Gail. I wasn't sleeping with the goddamn nanny. Gail, I wasn't suggesting you were, but this is going to hit social media and the news in a matter of minutes. Mark rationalizing. Well, why does it matter? They already know who killed her. Gail, come on. Sidney Prescott's recently fired nanny found dead after sending 100 crotch shots to a local lover? The memes write themselves. From upstairs, Ella calls for Sidney. She walks out of the kitchen silently. Mark storms in the opposite direction. Gail, somberly. Fuck. Nice work, Gail. Interior Kruger house, Sadie's bedroom. Morning. Sadie sits on her bed, writing furiously in an old school diary. She's interrupted by a light rapping on the window. She crawls down the edge of the bed and shakes her head at the sight of Max, his mouth and nostrils fogging up the window. Sadie unlocks the window and helps him inside. From Sadie's POV, Sadie sticks her head out the window and sees that Max is acrobatically wrapped around a drainage pipe below. Max topples onto Sadie's bed and kicks his sneakers off. Sadie, dude, what are you doing? Max, oh, you know me. Defying convention? Mixing it up? This little rom-com slasher trope is almost always late at night with a downright antagonistic father on the other end of the door, knocking hard at Sadie's door. Sharon, Sadie, honey, open up. We really need to talk. Sadie, quietly to Max. You gotta go. Max, I can't. Your dad's out there going full Amityville, shirtless, chopping wood with a literal fucking axe. Do y'all even have a fireplace? Another knock. Sharon, Sadie, right now. Sadie, you know what? Fuck it. Sadie walks to the door and opens it. Sharon steps inside when she sees Max is in there too. She tightens her robe. Sharon, did Max spend the night? Sadie. Max, no. I just came by to. Sadie, and what if he did? What are you going to say? What are you going to do to me? Ground me? I just can't with the hypocrisy. Sharon, aghast, steps into the room and grabs Sadie's arm. Sharon, you don't know anything about this situation or what things are like between your father and me. Sadie, sneering. I know you fucked your best friend's husband. What else is there to know? Sharon's face crumbles in anger and embarrassment. Sharon leaving the room. Get ready for school. Sadie, yeah, I won't be going. Turns to Max. Want to stay here and fuck all day? Max's eyes widen. Max, oh man, that sounds delightful. I've got this meeting with my guidance counselor at 10 to talk about this community college scholarship for fuck-ups. But maybe just a quickie for now, then I'll hit you up later. Wait, you're making a joke. Right, got it. Max laughs, wraps Sadie in a warm hug and kisses her softly. He turns back to the window. Sadie, Max, just use the front door. The jig is up. Max nods, salutes, then walks out of her room. Sadie suddenly hears muffled but distinctive arguing from outside. She walks over to the window. Through the window, Sharon and Ross are in the middle of a heated argument. Ross, shirtless and sweating, wields an axe in one hand and points in Sharon's face with the other. Sharon keeps her arms crossed defensively as she shouts over him. Sadie frowns, backs away from the window. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, driveway, morning. Angel steps out of her SUV, dressed in head-to-toe black, and opens the back doors. Ella eagerly hops right in. Grace, however, drags her feet. Angel, ma'am, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to hurry up and get in the car before the temperature further drops on the hot chocolates in the front console. Grace looks up at Angel and cracks a smile. Grace, whipped cream? Angel, an entire bottle for you to do as you wish, but only at stop signs. Safety first. Gail sees Alice and Janet walking up to the house. Gail. And that's my cue to exit. Alice and Janet see Gail ducking into the car and wave. Gail ignores them and slams the door. Angel peels out of the driveway and they're gone. Sidney waves to Alice and Janet and starts walking back up to the house, hoping they'll get the hint. They don't. Janet. Oh, Sidney, dear. Alice, sweetheart, good morning. Sidney stops and turns around, greeted by a massive plate of shortbread in Janet's arms. Sidney, this is too much, really. We still have all that upside-down cake from last night. Alice, upside down indeed. Janet, listen, Sidney. Alice and I both know, firsthand, the choppy waters of betrayal and how difficult they can be to navigate. Alice, everyone always says it's hard to stay, but that's bullshit. Leaving is the hard part. And it doesn't have to be. We love Mark. You know we do. But you don't have to just sit and take this. You're no shrinking little housewife. You're Sidney Prescott. You're a goddess, a warrior. Remember that. Sidney struggles to hide how bothered she is by their bold, unsolicited advice. She's relieved at the sound of the front door opening and Mark stepping outside in his running shorts and sneakers. Sidney, I need to go, but thank you for the cookies. Alice and Janet share an ambiguous look, then stroll back down the drive, arm in arm. Sidney is about to walk past Mark on the steps, but stops when he gently touches her arm. Mark, hey, I'm sorry about earlier. It's just, I don't know what to do here, Sid. Tell me what to do. What you want me to do. I'll do anything. I can't lose you, Sidney. I won't. Sidney is overcome with emotion, but clears her throat, reels it in. Looks away from him. Sidney, I don't know. I need space to think. Everything is different now. You're different now. Mark begins to tear up. Mark, I'm not. Sid, I promise you, it's still me. Sidney, and her. She's a stranger now, too. How do I keep living here, Mark? After all these years, after how hard I've worked to feel safe, to feel normal, to let people in, to not think everyone around me was out to get me. You undid all of that. Sidney wipes a tear from her face, pushes past Mark, and goes back into the house. Exterior Newton Township Elementary drop-off line. Morning. The back passenger seat door of a luxury SUV opens and out steps Ella, hamming it up as she is helped out by Angel's guiding hand. Grace follows, noticeably more self-conscious. She smiles at Angel but doesn't take her hand. Steps onto the sidewalk. Gail comes around the side and inserts herself between the girls and takes their arms to walk them in. Ella. Aunt Gail, we have to wait our turn. Gail. Your turn for what? Grace. Single file to the front door. Then we go into the auditorium to be called by grade and homeroom. Gail looks around at the chaotic, snaking line, unimpressed. Gail. That sounds needlessly complicated. Plus, Gail Weathers doesn't do lines. Come on. Gail proceeds to walk the girls through the line. Woman's voice. Excuse me, miss? Gail sees a school mom, late 30s, approaching her. Gail. I'm not signing anything this morning. Just taking my nieces to school. Thanks for understanding. School mom. No. You're cutting line. It starts back there. Gail. Well, I'm in something of a hurry. School mom. Everyone's in a hurry. But the line's the line. Please respect it. Gail lets go of the girls' hands, and they all turn around. Grace's face drops when she sees Jeff, the little shit who got her suspended, standing next to his mother, smirking. Jeff's mom to Grace. Wait a second. You're Grace. You're the one who assaulted my Jeff. They should have expelled you for what you did. Gail steps up to Jeff's mother. Gail. Don't you speak to her like that. In fact, don't speak to her at all. Jeff to Grace. My mom's right. You're crazy. Your whole family is. Ella. We're not crazy, you jerk. We're queens. Jeff. Yeah, your mom's queen of the nut house. Grace takes an angry step towards Jeff, but Gail lays a hand on her chest and gently pushes her back. Gail to Jeff's mom. Keep your kid away from these girls. I'm serious. Jeff's mom. Are you threatening me right now? Gail. Not at all. Just some friendly parental advice. Jeff's mom. Speaking of the parents, why aren't hers here? Too embarrassed to show their faces? Gail. You're going to be embarrassed to show your face once I'm done with it. Now back the fuck off. Jeff's mom's face contorts with rage. She closes her hand into a fist and takes a swing at Gail. It doesn't get very far, though. Angel's arm enters the frame and grabs the woman's wrist with such might that she yelps in pain and nearly drops to the ground. Angel to Gail with the girls. Go in. I've got this. Gail smiles, satisfied, and takes the girls' hands. The throng of parents and kids filming the confrontation on their phones obediently parts for them as they make their way to the school entrance. Interior Kruger house, kitchen, morning. Sadie walks into the kitchen and finds Ross at the table, staring blankly into his cup of coffee. Sadie, hey. Ross, hi, sweetie. Looks at his watch. You're late for school. Need me to drive you? Sadie pours herself a cup of coffee, sits down with him. Sadie, I'm not going. Thought I'd stay here with you, if you want. Ross reaches across the table and takes her hand. Ross, I'm so sorry about all of this. Sadie, God, why are you sorry? She's the one who did this. I'm beyond appalled. Ross, Sadie, she's still your mother. Sadie, I appreciate what you're doing, Dad, but you don't have to. I'm an adult. I get it's complicated and your marriage is between you two and different from my relationship with you as my parents or whatever. But what she did is so fucked up, not just to you, but to Sidney. It's so reckless. Ross, how'd you get so smart? I know not from me. Sadie, I listen to a lot of podcasts and watch a lot of Criterion. Ross smiles. He's so proud of his girl. Ross, listen, I think I need to leave just for a bit until your mom and I figure out what to do. Sadie, what? Why should you have to leave? She's the one who should leave. Ross, she needs to be near school. I'm remote. I can be wherever. Sadie, then I'm coming with you. I'm not staying here with her. No way. Ross closes his eyes and sighs. Ross, Sadie, I don't have the energy to debate this right now. I'll just be across town in an Airbnb. Sadie nods. Ross gets up, kisses her on the head. I'm going to head upstairs, take a nap. I barely slept last night. Sadie's phone buzzes on the table in front of her. She turns it around and sees a text from Grace. Will you still pick me up after school? Sadie starts to text back, then stops, puts her phone back down. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, day. Sidney walks through the house. The kitchen, the dining room, the living room, which despite the brilliant morning light and warm finishes, feels somber and empty. She approaches the steps, but stops when she hears the distinctive opening and closing of the front door. Then footsteps. She turns and looks around the corner. No one is there. She reaches into her pocket and takes out her phone. Texts Mark, are you back? Waits a moment. No response. It's amazing and heartbreaking to see how quickly Sidney's instincts kick in. Her body literally changes before us, her shoulders stiffening, her core tightening, her eyes scanning everything around her with superhuman ease. Sidney taps her phone and opens the Homestead app, the one Kayla was forced to open before her demise, and suddenly she has a 9-camera view of her home. She taps twice to zoom in on the driveway. The gate is ajar. She starts for the door and screams as she practically smashes right into Lex. Sidney, Jesus! Lex, whoa, sorry. Sidney, Lex, what are you doing in my house? Lex, what do you mean? We have an at-home scheduled. I figured you left the gate open for me. Sidney, I guess I forgot to cancel. Lex, sorry, I should have called or texted to confirm. Anyway, I'm here if you want to play, or I can go. Sidney, I think go. Lex, all right, sure. Lex turns and starts for the door, but he hesitates and turns back around. Lex, Sid, have you seen this? He holds up his phone and shows her a video from social media of Gail's schoolyard confrontation. Sidney, fuck me. Gail off screen from down the hall. Sid, I'm back. Did you know the front gate was open? Gail walks into the room, sees Lex, and smiles. Gail, chipper. I didn't know you were expecting company. What you watching? Exterior, Lulu Peterson's house. Day. Sadie rings the doorbell to Arthur's house. Lulu opens the door and then immediately half closes it. Lulu. Sadie, hey. Sadie, hey, Mrs. Peterson. Can I talk to Arthur? Lulu. Oh, well, he's at school. Shouldn't you be too? Sadie holds her phone up, shows Arthur's shared location. The door fully opens behind Lulu. Arthur stands behind her. Arthur, it's okay, Mom. Exterior road a few minutes later, day. Arthur and Sadie on the curb of a quiet road. Arthur, I shouldn't have showed you those pictures. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I just saw them being so careless, so out in the open, so I snapped. The pictures, I mean. Sadie, I'm glad you did. I always felt like something was off with my mom. I couldn't put my finger on it. Arthur, it never crossed your mind? Your family was so close to Sidney and Mark. Sadie, I guess it seemed too easy, too cliched. I thought her secrets were more twisted and complex than just being a shitty person who wanted to fuck her best friend's husband. Arthur, well, shitty people are usually shitty for a reason. My dad was pretty shitty. Treated my mom like shit for years. Then he dies in a wreck and bam, he's a fucking saint. Sadie, I think I'm just extra weirded out because my mom, idolizes Sidney. Arthur, my mom too. All these women do. Which is really fucking sick when you think about it. Sadie, what do you mean? Arthur, I mean, do you really think they would look at her and think, wow, what a role model? What a survivor. No way. They treat her like a film character who popped out of their TV screens. They want to, feel close to the pain she's endured without experiencing any of it themselves. That's how it was with me and Max. People were all over us because we both experienced tragedy. And they thought it was cool that we had dead dads. And maybe we played into it. I don't know. Sadie looks intensely as Arthur speaks, totally enraptured by his eloquence and insight. Arthur, anyway, that probably doesn't make any sense. Sadie, no. It makes total sense. Hey, have you and Max ever talked about this like this? I'm not trying to get you two back together, I swear. I'm just genuinely wondering. You were so compassionate and clear just now, like a monologue in an Ari Aster movie. Arthur laughs. Not Ari Aster, no. Max, what's wrong with Ari Aster? Beau is Afraid is like a heartbreaking work of staggering genius. Arthur and Sadie whip around, see Max standing behind them. Max, sorry, Sade. I came back to the house and your dad said you were out, so I checked your location. Arthur, not creepy at all? Max tentatively sits down beside Sadie. Max, this okay? Sadie looks at Arthur, who looks away, then nods. Okay. Max, Artie bro, we both care about Sadie, right? And she really needs us right now. So how about a truce? Just for a little bit. You can go back to hating me in a few days. Arthur, I don't hate you. Max, well, I don't hate you. Sadie's eyes light up. She leans back a bit. Sadie, it's giving challengers. Max bolts upright. Max, for fuck's sake, Sadie. Sadie claps her hands and has a giggling fit. Arthur looks away, smirking. Max rolls his eyes and gives into his own laughter. Three friends reunited. Happy. For now. Interior Newton Township Elementary, Sharon's classroom, day. Sharon sits at her desk in the front of the room while her students work quietly at their desks on a spelling test. She covertly starts scrolling on her phone through pictures of her and Sidney. She stops on a selfie of her, Ross, Sidney, and Mark on a boardwalk somewhere, then looks up guiltily at Grace's empty desk. Interior Newton Township Elementary, library, same time. Grace sits alone at a corner table in the library for her in-school suspension, languidly completing her homework assignments. At the circulation desk sits an elderly librarian, females 70s, busy behind carts of returned books. Grace gets up from the table to stretch. She yawns. The librarian leans over the desk to reprimand her. Librarian, young lady, you're supposed to be seated at all times unless using the lavatory. Grace, I'm stretching. My legs are asleep. Librarian, only to use the lavatory. Interior library bathroom, day. Grace exits the bathroom stall, steps up to the sink to wash her hands. When she turns off the water, she hears something. Is someone in the bathroom with her? Grace, hello? Someone else in here? In the mirror reflection, she scans the small, dim bathroom. A sudden scrape and squeak. Grace looks to the door. She has to pass the stalls to get to it and swallows nervously. She takes a careful step toward the door. Another squeak, another scrape. From beneath the stall, a foot drops, and another, then another. The squeaks turn into stifled laughter. Grace, no longer afraid, storms the stall to push the door open. She can't. It's too crowded in there. Voices, hold on, stop, it's stuck. The stall door finally rattles open, and out steps Carrie, Bryce, and Francesca. Carrie, surprise, Grace. Grace, what are you fools doing? Francesca, we snuck out of gym to break you out of here. Bryce, I thought we were just coming to see her. I don't want to get suspended too. Carrie, it was a joke, simpleton. Francesca, can we please get out of this bathroom? It smells like pee and sadness. Back in the library, the kids sit huddled together in the book stacks. Grace reaches her neck out to check for the librarian, who is still pensively at work at the book cart. Grace, okay, show me. Bryce holds out his phone, and they all watch a viral clip of the confrontation between Gail and Jeff's mother. Grace, my mom is going to be so mad. Bryce, fierce. Francesca, beyond. Grace, she hates when attention is drawn to us. Now me and Ella are on camera. Oh, she's going to freak out. Suddenly the lights go out. The sound of library doors closing and locking echo through the room. Grace reaches her neck around the corner. Now the librarian is gone from the front desk. Bryce, it's so dark and dusty in here. I'm going to have a panic attack. Francesca, don't worry, babe. Here. Francesca places her hands on Bryce's chest and begins to rub beneath his collarbone. Carrie, dude, what are you doing? Francesca, simulating his vagus nerve. Carrie, simulating his vag anus? Did you get his consent first? Grace gets up and does the practical thing. Walks over to the windows and pulls the blinds open. Gray midday light pours in. She turns around and screams at the sight of Ghostface standing in front of the locked doors, knife raised. Bryce, Francesca, and Carrie look out from behind the shelf and scream in unison. Ghostface comes rushing at Grace. She dodges him and crashes on top of the nearby table. But he's not down. He bolts after Grace and tackles her to the ground. Grace, absolutely terrified, grabs Ghostface's arm with both of her hands and with all of her strength manages to move it just enough to decenter him. She brings up her knee and gets Ghostface right in the groin. He grunts and jerks back. Grace rolls away from him and darts into the book stacks. She looks left, looks right, no trace of her friends. She walks carefully around the corners of the stacks while Ghostface quietly and so very menacingly enters the stacks, just one step behind her. Grace puts a hand to her mouth, but she's breathing so heavily it's basically no use. Ghostface pushes a row of books out from behind her. The books pile on either side of her, and Ghostface pulls Grace by the hair up against the shelf. In the struggle, Ghostface glides the knife against Grace's forearm and draws blood. He lets go as she resists, causing her to fall forward into the next bookshelf. Grace screams as blood begins to pour down her arm. She scoots on her backside as quickly as she can as Ghostface calmly marches toward her. He freezes when he hears the sound of a phone on speaker. Operator, 911, what is your emergency? Suddenly, the bookshelves on either side of Ghostface come toppling down. Ghostface is pummeled with books and momentarily trapped in between them. Francesca, Carrie, and Bryce appear from behind them. They get Grace to her feet, and they race over to the windows. Carrie and Bryce lift chairs and start smashing out the windows while Francesca and Grace huddle in the corner. Carrie, let's go, let's go. Francesca and Grace hoist themselves on the counter. Grace and Bryce already safely outside. Exterior, outside the library. Grace and Francesca roll out from the window onto their bellies and quickly get to their feet. They look inside and see the library doors are wide open and Ghostface is gone. Exterior, England Court Street, day. Mark staggers to the end of his jog. He places his hands on his knees and bends forward to catch his breath. Ross comes into view, running toward Mark with an aggressive pace. Mark hears him approaching, but before he can stand, Ross tackles him to the ground. Ross, you cocksucker! You fucked my wife, piece of shit! Mark puts his hands to his face defensively as Ross pelts him with punches in the stomach and chest. Mark, I'm sorry. Hey, stop. Come on, let's talk. Ross is deaf to Mark's calls for reason. He continues to pummel him. Finally, Mark sits upright and headbutts Ross, who falls back onto the pavement. Ross, in pain. Ah, fuck. Mark gets to his feet and puts his arms out in peace. Mark, shit, are you okay? Listen, stop. Just listen, all right? Ross is having none of it. He rushes Mark again. This time, Mark dodges him and gets an arm around Ross's neck. A loose but powerful chokehold. Ross brings his foot up and presses it down hard on the tips of Mark's foot. Mark wails in pain, and they fall backwards together once again. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence front porch. Sidney opens the door to let Lex out. They both immediately see the tussle. Lex rushes into the street to break it up. Exterior England Court Street, day. Lex handily pulls Mark off of Ross, then stands between them. Sidney and Gail come rushing down into the street. Lex, come on, cool it, both of you. Sidney to Mark, what are you doing? Mark points to Ross. He jumped me like a punk. Ross lunges at Mark. Ross, I do it again, you scumbag. Lex grabs Ross before he can get to Mark and holds him back. Ross begins to sob, pushes Lex away from him. Ross, you were my friend. Now you ruined my fucking life. To Sidney, he's gonna ruin yours too. Ross limps away back toward his car. Gail, Sid, isn't that one of your book club friends? Across the street, Callie walks along Debbie Ann's yard, peering into the windows, her hands covering her eyes to shield the sunlight. Sidney, Callie, what's going on? Callie walks over to the street. Callie, have you seen Deb or Mimi? I haven't heard from them since last night. Gail, didn't you leave with them? Callie, they decided they wanted to open another bottle of wine, but I was beat, so I went home. Neither is responding to my texts. Debbie Ann's son called from school to ask if I could come check on her. Callie, do you have a spare key for the house, or maybe the security code for emergencies? Sidney looks to Mark. Mark, let me call my buddy at the precinct. Have him come do a wellness check. Callie grimaces. Debbie Ann wouldn't like that. She's very AC-AB these days. Sidney, I'm pretty sure she doesn't lock her back patio doors. Callie nods, heads back over to the house. Sidney feels her phone buzz in her pocket. She takes out and sees Sharon is calling. She shows the phone to Gail. Gail, reaching for the phone. Unfucking believable. Here, let me answer it. Sidney waves Gail's hand away. Declines the call. Mark's phone immediately buzzes. Sharon is now calling him. Gail. Now that is really unfucking believable. Mark declines the call. His phone buzzes again. The call is now from Newton Elementary main office. Mark answers. Mark into the phone. Hello? What? My God. Okay, we're on our way. Mark hangs up, face drawn. Sidney. What is it? Mark. Someone attacked Gracie and her friends. Someone in a ghost face costume. Sidney inhales sharply. Sidney. My God. No. Mark and Sidney lock hands and run toward their car. Gail follows closely behind. Exterior Newton Township Elementary day. Utter chaos outside the school as parents abandon their cars to pick up their children from the early emergency dismissal. Teachers and police officers attempt to move everyone away from the building. Interior Mark's car. Sidney, Mark, and Gail pull up but can't get close to the entrance because of all of the traffic. Mark angrily pounds his fist against the wheel. Mark, motherfucker! Sidney unbuckles her seatbelt, opens the passenger door. Sidney, I'll meet you inside. Gail follows Sid's lead and bolts out of the back seat. Exterior Newton Township Elementary day. Sidney and Gail attempt to push through the crowd, but Sidney is becoming more visibly overwhelmed. A local female reporter and her cameraman spot Sidney and Gail and make a beeline over to them. Gail sees them coming and wraps a protective arm around Sidney. Gail, there another door? Sidney thinks briefly, then points to the side entrance. They turn around and start for the side door, but Sidney stops dead in her tracks at the sight of Sharon looking out into the crowd from the other side. Sharon sees Sidney and Gail and pushes the door open. She gestures for them to come inside. Gail, back to the front door? Sidney, no, I have to get to Grace. Interior Newton Township Elementary side entrance. Sharon eagerly lets Sidney and Gail into the building. Sidney, where is she? Sharon, Principal Lee's office. Ella too. They're both safe. Sidney, sucking back tears, rushes down the hall. Sharon hurries to be by her side. Sharon, Sid, I've been meaning to call you. I didn't know if you'd pick up or if you would. Sidney, are you seriously doing this? Now. Sharon, please, Sid, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I love you, and Mark loves you. More than anything, believe me, it was a terrible, terrible mistake. Sharon grabs Sidney's shoulder. Sidney whips around and backhands her across the mouth. Sidney, fuck you! Sharon brings a hand to her cheek, stunned by the slap. Gail, passing by Sharon. Better put ice on that. Interior, Newton Township Elementary, Principal Lee's office. Sidney and Gail enter the office where Grace is seated on a couch between a female officer and a male medic, who is putting the final touches on wrapping up her arm. Ella spins around in Principal Lee's swivel chair. Grace, Mommy! Sidney falls to her knees, wraps her arms around Grace's waist, drops her head in her lap. Sidney, baby, are you okay? Grace, totally. It's just a flesh wound. The medic smirks, gives the bandage a firm but gentle pat, then gets up to give Sidney and Grace space. Medic, you're all good. Ella bounces over to them and drapes herself over Sidney. Sidney pushes her face against Ella and fires a round of rapid kisses into her cheek. Gail watches the warm scene from the doorway, but her attention quickly turns to the sounds of squeaky shoes and whispered conversations in the hall. Gail takes a step back, looks out and sees Sharon, sobbing, trying to keep up with Mark as he races down the hall. She grabs his arm, but he jerks it away forcefully. Sharon gives up, looks around, embarrassed, hurries off down the hall in the other direction. Gail steps back into the office as Mark enters. The girls run over to him, and he lifts them both up at the same time, squeezes them tight, tears streaming down his face. Mark, oh, thank God you're all right. I don't know what I would have done. To the officer. Who did this? To Principal Lee. How'd they even get in? Where was security? Principal Lee. Detective Kincaid, we take the safety of our students and staff very seriously. No one gets into this building unless they're let in. Police officer, we've got officers scouring the entire school as we speak, but right now it's seeming like it may have just been a prank that went too far. Sidney, a prank? You're not serious. Look at my daughter's arm. Grace, Mom, it's like a big paper cut. It doesn't even hurt. Mark, what about the security cams? You checked them yet? Principal Lee, first thing we did, after making sure the kids were all right and contacting the authorities, of course. Police officer, we're taking the footage for further scrutiny. Gail, mind if I get a copy of that too? The officer shoots Gail a, you fucking kidding me? Look, Gail, worth a shot. Anyway, you question that little shit who's been bullying Grace? Or his mother? Principal Lee. Jeff was in the lunchroom with his cohort. And no, Ms. Weathers, his mother was not in the building. Gail, was Sharon? The room falls silent. Sidney and Mark exchange a tense look. Interior Mark's car later. Mark, Sidney, Gail, and the girls pull up to the front gates of England Court and see that there are multiple police officers camped out front, stopping cars as they try to enter. Ella from the back seat. Daddy, what's happening? Mark doesn't answer. Rolls down his window. An older male officer leans in. Older male officer. ID, please. Mark reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out his badge. The officer nods, waves him in. The gates open and he drives through. As the car slowly weaves through the main road, we see dozens of England Court residents standing outside their houses, watching the spectacle unfold. Sidney can't help but notice the glaring eyes of her neighbors as they see her pass by. She shifts in her seat and looks to the girls and Gail in the back seat, forces a reassuring smile. As the car gets closer to Sidney and Mark's house, familiar faces come into view. Alice and Janet, Lulu and Arthur, huddled on the curb next to other neighbors, watching as a group of police scuttle about Debbie Ann's front lawn. Splayed out across the grass is Callie, seemingly in shock as medics kneel beside her, placing an oxygen mask on her face. Sidney, stop the car. Mark, stop. Mark hits the brake and Sidney leaps out of the car. Gail does the same and follows behind her. Sidney and Gail make their way through the crowd just as the medical examiner's team rolls out 2 body bags on gurneys. Sidney gasps, clasps a hand over her eyes as if to wish it away. Alice and Janet appear on either side of Sidney and embrace her. Lulu steps towards Sidney, her face sallow with shock. She extends a trembling hand and grabs Sidney's. Lulu, I can't believe it. I just can't. Who would have done this? Arthur looms behind his mother, texting furiously. He looks up to see Gail studying him. He nervously shoves the phone back in his pocket, waves awkwardly. Gail widens her gaze and takes in the picturesque suburban street littered with concerned onlookers, or in Gail's mind, suspects. Gail, pre-lap. Ghostface is back. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, day. Sidney sits at the kitchen counter while Gail stands on the other side, pulling a cork from a wine bottle and pouring 2 very full glasses. Gail, whoever this fucker is, must have staged Kayla's death to make it seem like the neighbor. They've been orchestrating something bigger this entire time. Sidney, exhausted. So what do we do besides get the fuck out of Newton? Gail, well, if the past is prologue, then we don't have much time to figure this out. What's the motive this time? What hasn't been done before? Sidney takes a big gulp of wine. Sidney, let's see. Billy and Stu wanted to make a scary movie. Before Sidney can finish her thought, Gail slides her phone in front of Sidney. The Notes app opened and full of musings. Sidney glides her finger up and down the screen and smirks. Sidney, already done the legwork, I see. Gail, have we met? Okay, so we've got revenge/mommy issues ×2, Roman, then Billy, with Simple Stu along for the ride. We had the inverse with Nancy Loomis. Mickey wanted to star in his own show Trial. Charlie and Jill tried, and failed miserably, I might add, to remake the original. But bonus points to Jill for being ahead of the social media whoring curve. Richie and Amber forced a requel with mixed results, but isn't that always the case with requels? Anyway, it was back to the basics with the Baileys. Christina Carpenter, hot mess of Catholic guilt, hellbent on filicide. Her husband Josh did her bidding, mentally stuck at the Mocker House in 1996. And lastly, Marianne and Joel. They broke tradition by coming for me, but sealed their fate when they came for you. Which brings us to now. All roads always lead back to you. So who's doing this, Sid, and why? Sidney, we've lived here, been happy here, safe here, for so many years. Everyone and everything in our lives has been constant. If it isn't one of our friends, Gail, it'd be one hell of a long game, unless our ghost face is just coming into their own. Not a girl, not yet a killer. Until mommy's transgressions send her over the edge. Sidney. Sadie. Gail raises her eyebrows. Sidney. I don't know. I just don't see it. Gail. We never do we? Fine. Then maybe we're overthinking it. Gail. How about Sharon? Occam's razor. Obsessed with you. And by extension, Mark. She wants you out of the way so she can live your life? Or maybe mother-daughter are working together. Sidney. Would be a first. Gail. Precisely. That's something these killers relish. They think if they're different, they'll win. But ultimately, their greatest weakness is that, Sidney, they're all exactly the same. Gail nods, gives Sid an atta-girl smile. Sidney, so how do we get ahead of Ghostface? What's our next step? Mark walks into the kitchen. Mark, your next step and only step is getting to the safe house tonight. I've already made all of the arrangements. Gail, Mark, I get it, but hear me out. Mark, there's nothing to discuss. Someone tried to kill our daughter today. Do you get that? Ella, off screen. Someone wants to kill us? Gail, Mark, and Sidney turn around in unison to see Ella standing in the doorway, her face scrunched as frightened tears pull in her eyes. She runs out of the room. Mark, shit. Sidney hurries after Ella. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, Ella and Grace's bedroom. Sidney enters the girls' bedroom to find them huddled together on one of the beds. Grace's bandaged arm wrapped tightly around a sobbing Ella. Grace to Sidney. She's scared. Sidney sits down on the bed beside them. Sidney. Ellie Belly. Mama won't let anything happen to you. Or Gracie. I'll always protect you. I promise. Ella. What if Grace died? Grace. But I didn't. You know why? Ella shrugs her sad little shoulders. Grace. Because I'm Mommy's daughter, and you're Mommy's daughter, and Mommy always survives. Ella looks to Sidney for reassurance. Sidney, visibly choked up, manages to nod. Ella crawls over to Sidney and drapes herself onto her lap. Sidney reaches an arm toward Grace, gesturing for her to join them. Grace obliges, and soon they're pretzeled together, a moment of calm before the inevitable storm. Exterior Kruger House, driveway, night. Sadie sits on the back stoop, sad-eyed as she watches Ross load suitcases into his car. Ross, closing the trunk. All right, that's it. Sadie, not taking your axe, Mr. Bunyan? Ross turns and looks at the splintered logs in a messy pile on the side patch of grass. He laughs, mildly embarrassed. Ross, you know, that fucker is heavier than it looks. I think I gave myself bursitis. Sadie, please take me with you. Ross, Sade, come on. You're graduating in a couple of weeks. You don't need the disruption. Sadie, why'd she do this, Dad? Ross looks down, doesn't answer. Can't answer. Ross, can I get a hug? Sadie gets up and walks over to him, her arms outstretched like a zombie. Ross reciprocates and does his own stiff, undead shuffle over to her. They crack up as their arms connect. Ross brings Sadie in tight. Ross, my sweet girl, love you much, much. Sadie, love you most, most. As they separate from their embrace, we see Sharon peering through the back window, a blank expression on her face as she watches Ross get into the car and pull away. Instead of going back into the house, Sadie checks her phone, answers a text we are not privy to, then disappears down the dark street. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, basement garage, night. The door at the top of the basement steps opens. Light from the kitchen illuminates a spacious, well-organized garage. As Mark walks down the steps, a suitcase in each hand, the motion sensor lights come alive. He loads the suitcases into the trunk of his SUV, then starts back for the steps, when his phone buzzes in his pocket. He takes it out and sees an incoming call from Sharon. Mark sighs. Instead of declining, he turns around and walks back down the steps, hitting the garage door opener along the way. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, driveway, night. Mark steps several feet out onto the driveway, looks back to make sure no one is nearby, turns back around to answer the call. He doesn't see Ghostface slipping into the garage. Mark quietly into the phone. Sharon, please. I thought I made myself clear. Of course, it is not Sharon on the other line. Ghostface. And I thought I've made myself clear. I'm not going to be ignored, Mark. The distant sound of a dog barking causes Mark to jump. He looks around intently. Mark, who the fuck is this? Ghostface, you tell me, detective. Oh, that's right. You're out of practice. You've gone from Batman to Mr. Mom, neutered by your sweet little wife, the indomitable Sidney Prescott. Is that why you fucked her friend? To punish her? To feel like a real man? Mark, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Ghostface, come on. You can level with me. We're old pals, Mark. If you want her out of the way, just say the word. I'm at your service. Mark, you're sick. She's my world. I'd die for her. Ghostface, yes, well, most likely. It doesn't have to be like this, Mark. We can stop this vicious cycle, this generational trauma, as the kids would say. Let me kill her, Mark. Once the world is finally rid of Sidney Prescott, you and your girls can finally be safe. You can stop looking over your shoulder. Stop worrying every time the phone rings. Mark takes a breath, stifles his anger, his fear. Ghostface. Should I take your silence as an answer? As your subconscious desire? What's that saying? Yes, the call is coming from inside the house. Behind Mark, the basement door suddenly slams closed. Mark whips around and races back into the garage. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, basement garage, night. Not a second after Mark passes the SUV, Ghostface darts out from under the car and drives his knife directly into Mark's heel. Mark screams in pain and falls to his knees. Ghostface glides out from under the car, pulls Mark's leg closer, and swiftly, repeatedly stabs Mark in the Achilles tendon until it's gory, bone-exposed mess. Mark presses his hand to the cement floor and groans in agony as he twists his body and brings his other leg up. He smashes Ghostface in the face with his foot. Ghostface slams him up against the SUV, but quickly regains the upper hand. He brings his knife down and stabs Mark in quick succession, in the thighs, in the gut. Ghostface straddles Mark, lifts his head, slams it into the ground. Mark arches his back, near convulsion, puts his hands up. Ghostface immediately slashes at them. Mark finds the strength to bring a knee up and gets Ghostface hard in the groin. Ghostface grunts and falls momentarily to the side. From Mark's perspective, we see a nearby snow shovel. Mark rolls onto his belly and crawls toward the shovel. He manages to extend his arm just enough to cause the shovel to fall over. He grabs the handle, rolls over onto his back, and swings it at Ghostface. But the shovel hits his car. Ghostface is gone. Mark looks to the open garage door. His phone, cracked from when it fell from his hands, is just a few inches from it. Mark weakly attempts to crawl to the floor. He opens his mouth, thinking he'll scream. But he can't. He's concussed, bleeding profusely, barely conscious. Still, he tries for the door, slaps his hands on the concrete, tries to pull his leg, limp, the flesh of his ankle half separated from its bone, behind him. But it's no use. The garage door suddenly begins to close. Mark manages to bring his face over his shoulder. He's shaking, violently trembling now, and sees Ghostface standing on the basement steps, the bloody knife in one hand, his other pressed against the garage door panel. Mark watches helplessly, hopelessly, as the garage door closes. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, bedroom, same time. Sidney stands at her bed, filling her duffel bag. Her phone begins to vibrate and sputter along the dresser. Ella walks into the room and rushes over to grab the phone. Ella. I'll get it, Mommy. Sidney tries to object, but Ella already has the phone pressed against her ear. Ella, into the phone. Hello? Daddy? What? I can barely hear you. Do you have bad service? Sidney snaps her finger and Ella hands her the phone. Sidney into the phone. Mark, are you there? A sudden, sharp wheeze from the other end of the line. Mark, weak, gurgling. Sid, he got me. Help me. Panic immediately overtakes Sidney. Sidney, Mark, where are you? Mark, he's here, in the basement. Sidney pulls the phone from her face, taps out of the call screen and into her apps, pulls up Homestead to load her security cameras. She gasps when she sees 9 grayed out boxes, each with blinking red lettering that reads, Camera manually disengaged. Sidney grabs Ella by the hand and leads her into the hallway and back into her bedroom. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, Ella and Grace's bedroom. Gail, sitting on the bed with Grace, sees Sidney's expression and jumps to her feet. Gail, what is it? Sidney, stay here with the girls, okay? Gail follows Sidney out into the hallway. Gail, should I call the police? Before Sidney can answer, they both jump at the sound of banging on a door coming from downstairs. Sidney shouting, Ella, Grace! Ella and Grace pop their heads out into the hall. Grace, yeah? Sidney, show Aunt Gail your pretty room, okay? Ella and Grace exchange a look, a mix of simultaneous exhilaration and terror. Grace, Mommy, wait. Sidney, pretty room, now! Gail, confused, tries to follow Sidney, but Ella and Grace run out of the room and each take one of her arms and guide her back down the hallway. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room. Sidney races down the hall, her phone cradled between her cheek and shoulder. Sidney, Mark, stay with me, okay? Mark, Sid, I'm at the door. Through a coughing fit. Hurry, he's here, hurry. The pounding on the door intensifies. Sidney runs over to the fireplace, kneels before it, and reaches her arm to the throat. She pulls out a metallic box with a digital combination panel. She inputs the code, unlocks the box, and reveals a pistol. She removes it from the box, stands up, raises her arms, and walks toward the noise. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, upstairs hallway. Grace opens the linen closet at the end of the hall, drops to her knees, and crawls inside. Gail, to Ella. What is she doing? Ella puts a finger to her lips. Gail bends down and sees that Grace has located the wall panel at the back of the closet. She pushes against it, and the panel opens, revealing a metallic handle set back into the wall. Grace pushes the handle down, and a small door opens. She turns and gestures for Ella to join her. Ella, without missing a beat, drops to her knees, crawls down, and disappears through the small door. Grace, Aunt Gail, come on! Gail hesitates for a moment, but the look on Grace's face, as strong and assured as Sidney's, is all she needs. She crawls on her hands and knees through the panel. Grace closes the linen closet door behind her, losing all remaining light. She then crawls through the panel herself. We see the panel firmly close, the metallic handle realigning into lock mode. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence kitchen. Sidney walks speedily, but carefully, through the kitchen and approaches the basement door. Sidney. Mark, I'm coming. Mark? Mark doesn't respond. The pounding at the door grows stronger and stronger. The door vibrates as though someone is slamming their weight against the other side. Sidney can hear the sound both in the room and through the phone, a terrible echo that promises horrors to come. She reaches a shaky hand toward the door, unlatches the lock, touches the doorknob, begins to twist it open. Sidney, growing more emotional. Mark, answer me, please! Mark! The familiar click of the voice changer. Ghostface. Yes, dear. I'm right here. Sidney pulls her hand away from the knob, locks the door. Interior, an unknown dark space. Gail stands baffled in the middle of a generously sized, ultra-modern, windowless room with concrete walls. The girls sit at a large table covered with monitors showing each floor, room, and corner of the house, including the front porch, garage, backyard, and front gate. Gail, since when do you guys have a panic room? Ella, since always. Gail, you never told me. Grace, that's because we're not supposed to tell. Gail walks over to the monitor table. Ella taps a finger on the kitchen monitor, where Sidney stands at the basement door, gun raised. Gail, here we go. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, same time. Sidney stands at the door, frozen. Ghostface, what's the holdup, Sid? Your beloved is just on the other side of the door. He's lost a lot of blood. Every second counts. Hey, remember how much blood your mother lost that night? Remember when you walked in and found her naked, twisted in the bedsheets? Did you try to help her, Sid? Did you put your mouth to hers? Try to breathe some life back into her? Or did you run so fast you almost slipped in the blood pouring out of the breasts that once fed you? Sidney, fuck you, Ghostface. Ha ha! There she is. There's our girl. So, what will it be, Sidney? Are you going to see what's behind door number 1? Or are you going to just walk away and let him bleed out like you did your mother? Sidney grips the doorknob once again, twists it all the way, takes a deep anticipatory breath, then pulls the door open. She leaps back and puts both hands back on the gun. Nothing at eye level. She drops her gaze and sees Mark splayed out on his back across the staircase. Sidney slides her gun into the back of her jeans and rushes over to Mark. She falls to her knees and puts her hands under his arms. He looks up at her, his breath at one heavy and shallow, a death rattle. Sidney begins to pull him into the kitchen. His face comes alive and contorts with pain. Sidney, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sidney puts her mouth to his, kisses him once, twice, a third time. She's sobbing now at the sight of him, helpless, barely there. Sidney continues to pull him into the kitchen, but she struggles to get him over the marble lip at the top. Mark cries out in agony as Sidney tries to maneuver him. She crawls over him to get his legs, which are still dangling across the top of the basement steps. As she makes her way to Mark's feet, she looks down through the slats of the basement steps and sees Ghostface crouched down beneath the stairs. In one quick move, he darts the knife up through the slat and stabs Sidney in her bicep. Sidney pulls her arm back and reaches for the gun in her jeans, but Ghostface is too quick. He's already bounding up the steps. Before Sidney can aim her gun, Ghostface tackles her. Sidney's back smacks against the kitchen tile. Her gun slides across the kitchen and under the table. Ghostface wraps his hands tight around Sidney's neck, presses his thumbs deep into her throat. Sidney expertly grabs Ghostface's wrist and pulls them toward each other. creating just enough of a bend that Ghostface loses dominance and she's able to wiggle out of his grip. Sidney sits up and slams her side into Ghostface, who topples over momentarily, leaving Sidney with just enough agility to jump to her feet and sprint away. In what feels like half a second, Ghostface is on top of her again. He wraps his arms around her waist and throws her into the wall. He raises his knife and brings it down, but Sidney drops herself to the ground with such speed that Ghostface drives his knife into the wall instead. By the time he pulls his knife out, Sidney is bounding toward the living room. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, panic room, same time. Gail stands at the monitors, Grace and Ella under each arm, terrified for their mother, but unable to look away. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room, same time. Sidney runs to the fireplace, grabs a poker and swings it indiscriminately as she spins around. Sure enough, she gets Ghostface right in the head. Still, he pushes through her swatting and aims his knife toward her stomach. Sidney lifts her leg and swiftly knocks Ghostface in the knee, causing his legs to buckle. Sidney steps aside as he crashes into the glass coffee table. As Sidney runs past him, he grabs her by the ankle. Sidney nearly falls forward but catches herself on the fireplace mantel. She twists her body and kicks Ghostface multiple times in the face. He lets go of her leg and she makes her way to the front door. As she passes the blinking alarm panel, she sees that it reads deactivated. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, panic room, same time. Gail and the girls follow Sidney on the panic room monitors as she makes her way out the front door. They collectively scream at the sight of Ghostface rushing behind her. But instead of chasing her, Ghostface runs down the driveway to the open gate and disappears into the night. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, front porch, night. Close on Sidney's phone as she resets her Homestead app. The emergency option. She emerges from a crouching position behind the steps, sees Ghostface's street shadow fade in the distance. She looks from side to side, then makes a run for it back to the front steps, only to find Sadie standing in the doorway. Sidney. Sadie, what are you doing here? Sadie, I wanted to see you and the girls. Sadie points toward the street. Sadie, was that? Oh my God. Are you okay? You're bleeding. I can call the police. Sadie reaches into her pocket for her phone. Sidney, keep your fucking hands where I can see them. Sadie obediently removes her hand from her pocket. She's genuinely scared and confused. Sidney leans against the opposite railing and rushes up the steps. Sidney, stay right there. Don't fucking move. Sadie nods, near tears, as Sidney slams the door in her face. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, kitchen, night. Sidney goes back to Mark, eyes barely open, shivering in an ever-growing pool of red. She gently lifts his head into her lap, runs her fingers through his hair. Sidney, help is coming, okay? Hold on. Mark coughs, blood sputtering out of his chin and onto Sidney's hands. She braces him tighter. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, panic room, same time. Ella and Grace sit on the floor, sobbing, hugging each other tightly. Gail stands watching the monitors, fidgeting, the helplessness clearly getting to her. She scans all of the monitors, sees Sadie standing outside on her phone, shakes her head suspiciously. Suddenly, on the living room monitor, she sees Ghostface, the same one, another one, slinking through the living room in the direction of the kitchen. Gail, fuck. She turns to Ella and Grace. Gail, you stay here. I'll be right back. Grace, Aunt Gail, no. We're not supposed to leave until Mommy comes to get us. Aunt Gail! Gail ignores her and hurries up the steps. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, linen closet. The wall panel's metallic handle rotates and the door pushes open. Gail crawls through the small door and into the linen closet. She closes the door, pulls the handle to lock it. She stands up in the dark closet and feels around for the door handle. She finds it and pushes the door open, the hallway light entering through the slats. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, hallway. Gail races down the hallway toward the staircase. Gail, shouting down the steps. Sid, he's in the living room. Watch out! Gail turns the corner and runs directly into Ghostface, standing at the top of the steps. Gail, fuck you! Gail spins around, back down the hall, while Ghostface follows, knife raised. Gail darts into a room and slams the door shut. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, guest room. Ghostface rushes to the door, grabs the knob, finds it is locked. Ghostface slams his body against the door multiple times to no avail. He steps back, looks down the hall, and extends a hand with a "come here" gesture. From around the corner, another Ghostface appears, hurries over to join him. The second Ghostface reaches into their pocket and pulls out a skeleton key, inserts it into the lock, jiggles it a few times. The door pops open. The two Ghostfaces walk into the room. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence guest room. Upon entering, they are immediately greeted by a gunshot. The Ghostfaces disperse. One jumps behind a bed, the other toward a closet, while Gale, standing in the far corner of the room, fires off a round of bullets. The Ghostface behind the bed pops his head up. Gale aims her gun and shoots again. Ghostface ducks. The bullet explodes a nightstand lamp. Suddenly, Ghostface pushes the bed frame forward and clips Gale at the waist. Gale maintains her balance and nimbly rolls over the bed away from Ghostface. Just then, the Ghostface in the closet comes bolting out, a knife raised in the air, lunges at Gale. Gale kicks her legs up and throws herself from the bed, landing on her feet like a cat. Ghostface's knife slices through the down comforter, coughing up a flurry of feathers. Gale makes a beeline for the door, but the other Ghostface tackles her. They both slam hard into the dresser. Gale's gun slips from her grip. She extends a foot to slide it back, but Ghostface manages to kick it across the room first. Gale takes a bracing breath, then jerks her head back as hard as she can into the Ghostface. Ghostface grunts in pain and grabs at his head. Gale takes a woozy step back and is immediately caught by the other Ghostface, who wraps his arms around her and holds his grasp despite Gale's thrashing. Suddenly, Gale eyes her purse on the dresser. She raises a leg and manages to loop her purse string around the tip of her foot. She pulls the purse down and it hits the ground, its contents spilling across the hardwood. Gale reaches her arm to Ghostface's head, grabs the hard plastic of the mask with both hands, begins to pull it off. Ghostface, realizing what's happening, loosens his grip on Gale, but Gale doesn't relent. She yanks the mask from Ghostface's head. Before we can see Ghostface's reflection in the mirror, Ghostface throws her to the floor. Gale scrambles over to her purse, reaches a hand inside, wraps her palm around something we don't see, gets back on her feet, turns around, and with biting ferocity and a truly primal scream, swings her fist at Ghostface and lodges something into the flesh of his neck. Close on, a gold sheriff's badge, half sunken into Ghostface's throat, blood immediately spritzing out around it. Gale takes a focusing step back and gasps. Alice stands before her, in absolute shock at the sight of herself in the dresser mirror, bleeding from her throat. She brings a hand to her neck, pulls the metallic star out, and immediately faints as a torrent gushes from her wound. The second Ghostface drops to her knees, a distraught scream going from muffled to room-shaking as she yanks off her mask to reveal Janet underneath. She puts her hand over Alice's neck, desperately trying to get the blood to stop. Janet, no, 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 no! Good Lord, what have I done? What have I done? Gale, unsure. You're the killers? Janet looks up at Gale, a mix of contempt and panic in her eyes. She shakes her head. No. From the hallway, the sound of chatter from police walkie-talkies. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence hallway. Gale steps out into the hallway and sees 3 police officers looking into each open doorway, flashlights over their guns. One of them sees Gale and rushes over to her. Officer, ma'am, you all right? Are you hurt? Gale points toward the guest room. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence guest room. The officer steps aside, sees the Ghostface masks on the ground and the puddles of blood, and aims his gun at Janet. Officer, hands up, now. Janet ignores him. Officer, I said hands up right now. Don't make me shoot you. Janet carefully moves her hands away from an expiring Alice's neck. She raises her blood-soaked hands in the air. Exterior England Court, street night. Another large crowd has gathered, mouths agape as the dramatic scene unfolds before them. Mark being unloaded onto an ambulance, several EMTs on him furiously, one cutting through his clothing, another hooking up an IV to his arm, another pumping oxygen. Across the street, Alice's lifeless body taken on a gurney into another ambulance. A handcuffed Janet, barely able to stand, shrieking as the police push her into a squad car. Sadie stands up in the street, tears streaming down her face. She looks up and sees Ross in the crowd, running toward her. She races over to him and collapses in his arms. Ross, holy shit, were you in there? Sadie, no, I'm okay. Ross looks to the ambulance with Mark inside. He looks across the street and sees Sidney on the front porch, hugging a sobbing Ella and Grace, while Gail sits on the top step speaking with an officer. Ross swallows hard. Choked up. He kisses Sadie on the top of her head. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, front porch, night. Gail looks up at the officer while he takes notes. Gail, so what? They just wanted to scare us into leaving? Officer, that's what she claims, to get the killer to follow you all out of town. Keep the neighborhood safe. Gail, they had fucking hunting knives. Officer, which appear to be brand new, unused, no blood. At least, that we can see. We haven't found the knife used to attack Detective Kincaid. Gail, of course not. That fucker got away. Hey, about that sheriff's badge. It was my late husband's, and I need it. I'd like it back. Officer, noted. Sidney hurries down the steps with another officer. She stops midway and pulls Gail close to her. Sidney, you stay here with the girls. Just you, okay? Gail nods. Her eyes flush with tears. Gail, of course. Gail throws her arms around Sidney. Gail, he'll be okay. Sidney doesn't respond, wipes her tears with her sleeve, rushes down the drive to join Mark in the ambulance. Exterior Lulu Peterson's house. Porch, night. Lulu sits on her porch swing with a glass of wine, stoically watching the scene outside of Sidney's house from a safe distance. The front door opens and Arthur hurries out, phone in his hand, and starts for the steps. Lulu, where do you think you're going? Arthur, Max is picking me up so we can go check on Sadie. Lulu, that's very valiant of you, but there is a killer on the loose. Back inside. Arthur, what? Mom, you're not serious. Lulu sips from her glass, looks back out into the dark street. Arthur, frustrated, storms back inside. Lulu's phone jingles as a text comes in. She reaches for the phone, reads the text, then puts the phone back down. When she turns her head to look back out at the street, we see Ghostface standing behind her on the side lawn. He briskly stalks toward her, then dips out of sight. Lulu hears an unintelligible noise and immediately sits upright. She leaps from the swing onto her feet and looks around in every direction. Sufficiently creeped out, she turns to open her front door, but it's locked. She knocks. Lulu, Arthur, hello? She presses the doorbell twice. Waits a moment. Nothing. Lulu, fucking AirPods. Exterior Lulu Peterson's house. Side yard, night. Lulu walks around the side of the house, the floodlights in front of her lighting up as she approaches, the lights behind her going dark as she steps away from them. As the lights pop alive and then cut to black, we see flashes of Ghostface weaving back and forth behind her, a silent taunting of what's to come. Lulu reaches the back kitchen door, tries the knob, locked. Lulu, shit. She puts her glass of wine down on the step so she can text Arthur to let her in. Ghostface is now directly behind her. On the screen, message failed to send. Lulu groans in frustration. She starts to walk down the steps. Ghostface is gone once again, but stops when she remembers her glass of wine. Exterior Lulu Peterson's house, front porch, night. Lulu finishes her last sip of wine as she turns the corner back to the front of the house. She furrows her brow at the sight of the front door wide open. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, foyer, night. Lulu steps inside the house and closes the door behind her. She locks and deadbolts the door. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, kitchen, night. Lulu enters the kitchen. She walks up to the sink to rinse her wine glass when she sees that the previously locked kitchen door is also wide open. She takes a tentative step toward the door and looks out into the yard. She screams when a cat zips across the grass, then laughs at her own reaction. She closes the door and locks it. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, upstairs, night. Lulu climbs the steps to the second floor. She knocks on Arthur's bedroom door, but opens it before she gets any response. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, Arthur's bedroom, night. Lulu steps into the bedroom. The lights are on, but Arthur isn't there. Lulu takes a confused step toward his bedroom window, which is also open. She takes out her phone to dial his number. It goes directly to voicemail. Arthur through the phone. Hey, this is Artie. Fill it up, and I'll hit it back. Beep. Lulu. Arthur Peterson, I cannot believe you had the nerve to defy me and sneak out of the house. You are so fucking grounded. You're going to need a shovel to... Lulu jumps as someone touches her shoulder. She spins around to find Arthur standing before her, his giant noise-canceling headphones raised onto his head. Arthur. Jesus, what's wrong with you? Lulu. What's wrong with me? I've been calling you. I've been knocking. Arthur. I was in the bathroom and I had my headphones on. Lulu collecting herself. I was locked out. Arthur, half listening to her, puts his headphones back on and plops down onto his desk chair before his electric keyboard. Begins to silently play. Lulu, frustrated, walks out of the room. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, hallway, night. Lulu starts for the steps, but then stops herself. She turns back around and stands in Arthur's doorway. Lulu. Arthur, did you open the doors downstairs? Shouting. Arthur. Louder. Arth. Before she can get the next syllable out, Ghostface comes racing down the hall at her. He drives his knife deep into her gut with such force that she lifts off the ground. Lulu shrieks in terror as she's carried toward the picture window at the end of the hall. She tries to fight back, swatting her hand at Ghostface's head, kicking him in the legs, but it's pointless. Ghostface pushes her toward the window with one blunt, powerful swing, punches her so hard, she slides off his knife and crashes through the window. Exterior Lulu Peterson's house, backyard, night. Lulu's screams are silenced as her flailing body plummets to the stone patio below. Interior Lulu Peterson's house, Arthur's bedroom, night. Arthur stops playing his game for a moment, lifts one headphone from his ear. Arthur, from his seat without getting up. Mom, you say something? No response. He puts his headphones back over his ears and continues to play. From the hallway, we see Ghostface glide past Arthur's door and walk down the steps. Interior Newton Township Hospital, intensive care, night. Sidney stands outside of Mark's curtained area in the intensive care unit, speaking with the emergency room doctor. Sidney can barely get out the words. Coma? Doctor. He lost a decent amount of blood, and he has significant trauma to the head. His other vitals are strong, though, all things considered. Sidney looks back at Mark in his ICU bed, battered leg raised high in a stirrup, his torso encased in a thick bandaging, and his face barely visible beneath the ventilator tubing. Sidney. Can he hear me? Doctor. Never hurts to assume so. The doctor pats Sidney on the arm and steps away. Sidney walks into Mark's unit and pulls the curtain closed. She sits down on the chair beside him. Sidney. You were right, about me always running toward the fire. I tell myself I'm trying to contain it, to stop it from getting to you and the kids. But I don't know. Maybe part of me thinks I can go back in time, stop the match from ever being lit in the first place. Sidney smirks, carefully places a hand over Mark's. Sidney. Right about now, you'd tell me I've beaten the metaphor so badly, you're planning its memorial service. I know you'd want me to take the girls and go, but I won't leave you. Not again. Never again. But you have to stay with us. All right, Mark? Sidney's attention is pulled by the squeak of a shoe on the hospital tile. She looks over her shoulder and sees a pair of black boots standing uncomfortably close to the unit curtain. She follows as the boots make their way around the perimeter of the curtain to the opening. Sidney stands up defensively, places a hand on the curtain, and pulls it open. A distraught man stands at the curtain, realizes he's in the wrong place, and puts up a hand in apology. Sidney gives him an understanding half smile as he shuffles away. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, bedroom, night. Gail sits in the wingback chair in Sidney and Mark's bedroom, eyes on Ella and Grace, cuddled tightly into one another in their parents' bed. Her phone buzzes in her pocket. She pulls it out and sees a text message from Gwen, the journalist who tipped her off about Kayla's death. On the screen, Gail, is this true? Would appreciate a confirmation or denial from you ASAP. Beneath the message, a thumbnail link to a TMZ article featuring a picture of a photoshopped photo of Gail's face where a ghost face mask should be. The headline reads, Gail Weathers gets it wrong. Again. Slays elderly neighbor of Sidney Prescott. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, hallway, night. Gail walks past the guest room, which has been corded off with police tape. She stops for a moment, takes in the bloody mess on the floor. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, foyer, night. Gail steps into the foyer and walks up to the front door. She pulls the curtain back from the window panel beside the door, sees Angel sitting on the porch, deep in conversation with 2 police officers. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence kitchen, night. Gail walks toward the kitchen, practically booby-trapped with cones and caution tape. Through the glass windows, she sees multiple police officers standing on the back patio. Gail cranes her neck just so and catches a glimpse of the blood-smeared area where Mark's body lay. She pulls herself back, covers her face with her hands, stifling tears. Dewey's voice. You did good, kid. Gail pulls her hands from her face, scoffs. Gail. I've done shit. Dewey's voice. Hey, watch it. Gail looks up and sees Dewey. Handsome, youthful, proud, sitting at the kitchen counter. He smiles. Dewey. That's my best friend you're talking about. Gail closes her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She nods like she believes it. Opens her eyes. Dewey is gone. Exterior Kruger house. Driveway, night. Ross and Sadie pull into the driveway. Interior Ross's car, night. Ross turns the ignition off. Sadie unbuckles and opens the passenger side door. Sadie, I'll be quick. Ross, take your time and grab my beard trimmer. I forgot to pack it. Sadie closes the car door and enters the house through the back door. Ross sits in the dark car alone, slinks down a bit in his seat, and lets out a deep exhale. Doesn't see the reflection of an approaching ghost face in the rear view. Interior Kruger house, kitchen, night. Sadie walks into the kitchen through the back door. The kitchen is bright and spotless, everything eerily in its place. She is suddenly startled by a loud thumping coming from upstairs. Interior Kruger house, living room, night. Sadie walks through the living room, which has a similar vibe to the kitchen. Something is off. The banging from upstairs grows louder, now accompanied by muffled screams and groans. Sadie calls out, Mom, are you all right? Interior Kruger house, upstairs, night. Sadie slowly climbs the steps in pursuit of the ominous noises. She reaches the landing and stares at her parents' bedroom door. More thumping. Then a scrape. The unmistakable sound of Sharon's screams being muffled. Sadie reaches for the knob, pushes the door open, braces herself. She gasps and brings her hands to her mouth at the sight of Interior Kruger house, bedroom, night. Sharon is in bed with James Lee, the principal of Newton Elementary, and Sharon's boss. The two rapturously fucking. Neither realizes that Sadie is standing in the doorway until Sharon rolls on top of James to straddle him. James makes eye contact with Sadie and immediately freezes in place. Sharon looks over her shoulder and screams. Sadie, oh my God! Oh my fucking God! Sadie flies out of the room. Sharon grabs her robe and leaps out of the bed after her. Interior Kruger house, staircase, night. Sharon watches Sadie from the top of the steps. Sharon, Sadie! Wait, I'm sorry, I thought you were out for the night. Sadie looks up at her mother with disgust. Sadie, you are unfucking believable! You know that? Dad is outside in the car right now, and you're screwing your boss? Sharon, I can explain. Please, let me explain. Sadie, do you even know what's going on? Do you have any idea what happened tonight? Sharon shakes her head. Sadie, the killer was in Sidney's house. Mark is like clinging to his life in the hospital. Sharon, what? No, oh my God. James awkwardly walks out of the bedroom, half dressed. Sadie, anyway, you should probably get back to work. Sharon races down the steps to try to stop Sadie, but she's out the front door before Sharon can reach her. Sharon, fuck! Exhausted with herself. Sharon, what am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? James, do you want me to go or... Exterior house, driveway, night. Sadie, in a flurry of shock and anger, runs back to Ross's car. When she approaches, she sees that the driver's seat door is open. The keys are still in the ignition, but Ross is no longer in the car. Sadie looks around the dark driveway. Sadie, Dad, where are you? She pulls her phone from her jeans and calls him. After the first ringback tone, Sadie hears the jingle of Ross's phone from inside the car. Sadie, what the? Please tell me you didn't go in the house. Sadie hurries back over to the back door, goes to turn the knob, then realizes it's locked. Exterior Kruger house, front yard, night. Sadie walks around to the front door of the house. She looks up to the top floor and sees, through the window, Sharon and James engaged in a heated conversation. Then, through the hallway window, Ghostface pops into frame, knife raised, headed in the direction of the bedroom. Sadie, shit, Mom! Interior Kruger house, foyer, night. Sadie bursts through the front door, screaming, to warn Sharon. Sadie. Mom! Sharon is already racing down the steps to meet Sadie. James stands at the top of the steps, alarmed and confused. Sharon. Sadie! Baby, what is it? Are you all right? Sadie places her hands in Sharon's and tries to pull her toward the front door. Sadie. The killers are in the house. We have to get out of here. Sharon. What? What do you mean? Sadie. He's upstairs. I fucking saw him in the window. James from the top of the steps. I'm sorry, what? Ghostface suddenly rushes out from behind a closed door and with one firm shove pushes a clueless James over the banister. Before James can even process what's happening, it's over. He drops swiftly to the ground below, his neck cracked, his body contorted beneath him. Sadie and Sharon scream as Ghostface pulls his knife from the sheath beneath his sleeve and bolts down the steps. Sadie pulls the front door open, but on the other side, another Ghostface pushes his way into the house. Sadie slams her weight against the door, but this Ghostface is too fast, too strong. Sadie can barely stay on her feet as the Ghostface forces the door open, his knife perilously close to Sadie's eye. With one final shove, the door slams Sadie in the face and sends her flying backwards, her head smacking hard into the wall. At the same time, the Ghostface from the top of the steps reaches a terrified Sharon. He wraps an arm around her neck and begins to drag her back toward the staircase. Sadie, disoriented, climbs to her feet and screams at the sight of her mother being taken back upstairs. She attempts a few dizzying steps in the direction of the staircase, but Ghostface is right on her. He grabs her by the hair and pushes her down on the ground. Sadie hoists herself up on all fours, but Ghostface is quick to land a powerful kick to Sadie's stomach, flipping her onto her back, splayed across the bottom steps. Using her elbow, Sadie desperately tries to push herself backwards up the staircase. Ghostface, with the unnerving patience of Michael Myers, ascends the steps slowly, matching the cadence of Sadie's every move. This goes on for a few very tense steps until Sadie finally reaches for the railing and climbs to her feet and attempts to run for it. Interior Kruger house, upstairs, night. Sadie makes it to the top of the steps, turns the corner, tries to call for Sharon, but is quickly met by the second Ghostface with a punch to the head that knocks her out. The two Ghostfaces stand over Sadie's unconscious body. They exchange a nod of approval, then walk together into Sharon's bedroom. Interior Newton Township Hospital, intensive care, night. Sidney is asleep on a chair next to Mark's bed when the beeping of her phone, almost indistinguishable from the cacophony of beeps emanating from the machines hooked up to Mark, begins. Sidney's eyes shoot open, and she wipes her mouth with the sleeve of her shirt. She reaches down into her bag, fishes the phone out. On the screen, an incoming call from Sadie. Sidney takes a centering breath, answers the call. Sidney, what is it? Of course, it isn't Sadie. Ghostface. History is repeating itself as we speak, Ms. Prescott, and your presence has been cordially requested at 9 Peyton Place to bear witness. Sidney. And what makes you think I'd do that? Ghostface. Oh, you'll come, Sidney. You know what's at stake if you don't. Your dear bestie, Gail? Your precious little girls? If you keep us waiting, we'll just have to move the party over to your house. We've got the code, we've got the keys, and we've got all we need to take down that gaggle of Barney Fifes camped out on your lawn. We don't want to have to hurt your girls, Sid, but we need you here right now. If we miss our window, we may have to begin our work all over again. Sidney stands up, puts her hand on her head, angrily scrunches her mouth. Sidney. Fine. I'm on my way. Ghostface. Oh, goody. You'll see, Sidney. After tonight, it'll all finally be over. No more looking over your shoulder. No more copycats. No more shitty sequels. Sidney. Well, that sounds too good to be true. Ghostface. And Sid, you know the drill, don't you? Sidney. No cops. Ghostface. No cops. Sidney. No guns. Ghostface. No guns. Sidney. No one but me. Ghostface. That's right. No one but you. A final girl for the final time. Click. Sidney gives herself a moment to let the panic and the reality of the moment wash over her. She takes a deep breath, walks over to Mark, and places a hand on his shoulder. Sidney. Mark, baby, I have to go. I know you wouldn't want me to, but I'll be here when you wake up, okay? I promise. She kisses the top of his head, fights back tears, exits the curtained ICU area. Interior Prescott Kincaid residence, living room, night. Gail sits on the sofa with a cup of tea, her laptop open on her legs. On the laptop screen, Gail scrolls through literally hundreds of emails. We catch a few disparate examples. ABC News, NPR, The New York Times, CNN, Fox, Gail King. All of the subject lines, variations on free to chat, exclusive, question mark. Gail sucks her teeth, sighs, closes the laptop. Her phone buzzes on the coffee table before her. She answers. Gail. Sid. Hey, you heading home already? Intercut. Sidney in the car, Gail in the living room. Sidney drives down a dark road. Sidney. No, I'm going to meet the killers. Gail. Cute. Do you want me to send Angel for some takeout? You must be starving. Sidney. Gail, I'm serious. The killers called me. I've been beckoned to Sharon and Ross's place. So off I go. Gail's eyes widen. Gail. What? Alone? The fuck you are? Sidney. Gail, please. If I don't do what they say, they might just stay alert. Stay with the girls. If I don't walk through the door in the morning, tell them Sidney is too choked up to finish her thought. Gail is equally emotional, but sucks it back for Sidney. Gail. I won't need to tell them anything. You will tell them yourself. Sidney nods, ends the call. Pulls up to the Kruger house. Exterior Kruger house. Front door, night. Sidney stands at the front door of the Kruger house. She tries the knob. It's unlocked. She takes a deep, bracing breath and enters. Interior Kruger house, living room, night. Sidney stands in the Krugers' living room, observing the chaotic mess before her. Smashed lamps, overturned end tables, curtains torn. She takes a careful step backward, anticipating any corner or door where a ghost face may suddenly appear. On the floor, a trail of overturned photographs seemingly leading Sidney to the staircase. Sidney bends down and picks one up, turns it around. Close on, the iconic photograph of teenaged Sidney and her mother, Maureen Prescott, smiling, happy, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Sidney bends down and picks up a few more photographs. Another picture of Maureen and a much younger Sidney. Maureen and Neil on their wedding day. A picture of young Cotton Weary sitting at a bar with a pint, offering cheers. Sidney stops in her tracks at the sight of Principal Lee's dead, broken body at the bottom of the staircase. She lets the photographs fall from her hands, proceeds up the stairs. Interior Kruger house, upstairs, night. Sidney reaches the second floor and scoffs when she sees "What's your favorite scary movie?" scrawled in blood across the wall. Her attention quickly turns to the nearby sounds of muffled sobbing and groaning. Sidney takes a step deeper down the hall and sees, through Sharon's bedroom door, Sadie, her hands and legs duct taped to an armchair, another layer of tape across her mouth. She faces the direction of something we cannot yet see, but her inconsolable, near-gagging sobs indicate its horrors. She lolls her head to the side and sees Sidney standing in the doorway. Her eyes widen. She grunts and rocks herself in the chair, desperate for help. Interior Kruger house, bedroom, night. Sidney steps inside the bedroom and screams at the sight of Sharon tied to the bed by her wrists with the bedsheets. Her white nightie is soaked in blood from multiple stab wounds, her face swollen and bruised. She sputters shallow breaths, but she's barely alive. Sidney takes a moment to register what's happening, to make a plan, then snaps into action. She kneels down beside Sadie and attempts to undo the tape. She doesn't get very far because before the bedroom door slams closed, she looks up and sees Ghostface standing at the door, wielding his knife. The ensuite bathroom door swings open and the second Ghostface steps into the room. Note, both Ghostfaces speak via built-in voice changers. Ghostface number 1, leave her or watch her die too. Ghostface number 2, pointing his knife at Sharon. Having a little deja vu, Sidney? Sidney looks at Sharon, looks at Sadie. Her face crumples with sheer disgust. Sidney, stop it! You don't have to do this. Ghostface number 2. Of course we do. You know better than anyone, Sidney. This is the only way for Sadie's story to begin. The two Ghostfaces walk to either side of the bed, their knives in position. Sadie begins violently thrashing in her chair, desperate for them to stop. Sidney rushes to Sadie's side. She crouches behind the chair, covertly removes a knife from her back pocket, and slides down to begin cutting Sadie loose. Sidney, don't watch. Look at me. Keep looking at me. Sadie looks up at Sidney but can't help but turn her eyes toward the bed, where the two ghost faces, kneeling on either side of the mattress, relish in taking turns stabbing Sharon. Sadie howls as the life drains from Sharon, sad, bloodshot eyes fixed on her daughter. She manages to cough up a broken "love you" before her body goes completely limp. The ghost faces each get one final stab. They withdraw their knives and, in unison, turn their attention back to Sidney and Sadie, but they're gone. The ghost faces leap off the bed and run out of the bedroom. Interior Kruger house, Sadie's bedroom, night. Sidney slams Sadie's bedroom door shut and locks it before the ghost faces reach them. Sidney, Sadie, help me. Sidney tries to push the dresser to the door. A shaky, distraught Sadie peels the duct tape from her mouth and limps over to assist Sidney. But the two ghost faces are slamming their weight against the door with such ferocity, it hardly matters. Sidney looks to the window. Sidney, can we climb it? Sadie nods. She stumbles over the window and opens it. She begins to climb out, while Sidney continues to hold the ghost faces back. One of the ghost faces successfully gets an arm through the door, and Sidney promptly drives her knife through his hand. He groans and pulls it back. Sidney runs to the window and climbs out beside Sadie just as the door explodes open and the dresser topples over. Exterior Sadie's window, trellis, night. Sadie carefully climbs down the rose trellis. Sidney follows, but Ghostface quickly appears at the window. He bends forward and spiders his way down to Sidney at an alarming speed. Sadie drops down to the grass, watching in terror as Ghostface grabs at Sidney. Sidney tightens her grip on the trellis with one hand and uses the other to grab at Ghostface's robe, causing him to lose his balance and fall forward down the trellis. But on his way down, he grabs Sidney's leg and takes her down with him. They land side by side. Sidney bolts upright and swings her knife at Ghostface, but he manages to get her in the shoulder, in the exact spot where she was stabbed in the news van during the original Woodsboro massacre. Sadie runs behind Ghostface with a shovel and pelts him upside the head. Ghostface falls over, then rolls onto his stomach and starts to get back on his feet. Sadie helps Sidney up. They lock hands and make a run for the front of the house, but suddenly, the second Ghostface crashes through the window and sidelines them both. Sidney and Sadie scramble to get up from the wet grass. Ghostface gains on them, knife raised. From a distance, we see the other Ghostface running around the other side of the house. The Ghostface behind Sidney and Sadie brings his knife down and slashes Sadie across the back. She screams in pain, her body instinctively buckling and falling back into Ghostface's arms. He brings the knife down again and stabs her in the thigh. Sadie screams intensify. Ghostface lifts Sadie and slings her over his shoulder. Sidney stops running, turns back towards Sadie and Ghostface. Sidney, let her go, motherfucker! Sidney is distracted just long enough for the second Ghostface to surprise her from behind and grab her in a similar manner. Ghostface twists Sidney's wrists and her knife falls from her hands into the dark grass. Sidney allows herself to be lifted by Ghostface so she can bring her heels down to his knees and unbalance him. They fall forward onto the stone patio. Sidney pulls herself up on the corner of the nearby barbecue grill, then promptly tips it over onto Ghostface as he's attempting to get back on his feet. Ghostface momentarily succumbs to the weight of the grill, then pushes it back up with such force that it knocks Sidney off of her feet and hurls her into the glass patio table. Sidney and the table flip over together, shattered glass raining over Sidney. She tries to get back on her feet, but Ghostface is immediately on her. He pulls her to her feet by her hair and brings his knife to her throat. Sidney stops resisting and allows Ghostface to walk her into the house through the patio doors. Interior Kruger house, dining room, night. The Ghostfaces push Sidney and Sadie into the dining room. They force them to sit tightly side by side at the table. Sidney loops an arm around Sadie, who is on razor's edge of complete emotional collapse. Her eyes bloodshot, puffy, the capillaries in her face exploded like fireworks. Sidney offers a barely audible shh into Sadie's ear as an attempt to calm her. The two Ghostfaces sit down across from Sidney and Sadie and begin to mirror and mock Sidney's affection and Sadie's trembling. Sidney sits up, puffs her chest, angry. The Ghostface across from her does the same. Sadie, overcome with an anxious chill as though she might fall from a ladder, grabs at Sidney's arm. The second ghost face grabs the first's arm. Staticky laughter pops up from the cracked voice changers on their shoulders. The ghost faces wrap an arm around each other's shoulders and grab the fabric at the back of their masks. They press their foreheads against one another. A strange moment of calm intimacy. They begin to pull at their masks. Once the hard plastic shell is out of the way, the thin fabric between them slowly lifts close on, the reveal of their necks, their chins pressed against each other, their mouths a hair away from a kiss. Sadie emits a simultaneously gasp and cry, so violent that she nearly gags on her own shock. Sidney readjusts herself in her seat because nothing shocks her. Max and Arthur, unmasked, sit before them, their lips and tongues hungrily finding each other. There's no parody here. These two are completely lost in each other, their love palpable, and in the context of all of that's occurred, absolutely terrifying. They share one more quick kiss, then turn their focus back to Sadie and Sidney. Max. Good news, Sade. We made up. Arthur. You're so stupid. Sadie. I don't understand. You're together? You're doing this together? Why? Why did you kill my mom? Max. Aw, now she loves her mommy again. Sadie. Fuck you. Max. Hey, Sade. It's all right. You should see what I did to his mom and what he did to mine. Arthur. Yeah, poor thing never made it to that work trip after all. Sadie looks to Sidney, who is disgusted but stoic. Sidney. How about you spare us the breadcrumbs? You just butchered her mother in front of her. The least you can do is not be pretentious pricks about it. Arthur, in an affected German accent. You must put down the woman who bore you. Reject her. Expel her. Death to any other mother. Sidney. I guess you can't. Arthur. Come on, Sade. Madame Marcos? To Susie Bannon? Suspiria 2018? Guada fucking Nino? You loved that movie. You talked about it nonstop. The gothic sapphic vibes. We watched it like 8 goddamn times. Arthur leans forward, grabs Sadie's quivering hand. Arthur. Don't be scared, Sade. This is all for you. Your life is going to change tonight. It's already happening. Max. And, of course, we have to thank you, Sidney, for all you've done. Sidney. What have I done? Max. Are you kidding? There has been no greater final girl in life or in cinema than Sidney Prescott. The other assholes who tried this before, they thought you could just be replaced, but that's not how this works. You don't just swap out Sidney fucking Prescott for another lead. You have to start the story all over again. Not a reboot, not a remake, or a fucking requel. No. The only way is a rebirth. Sidney. So that's why you killed Sharon. Arthur. I mean, Sade, can you imagine a clearer sign from the universe? Your mother was fucking Sidney Prescott's husband and her boss. And wait for it, Sidney's nanny. I'm all for female empowerment and sexual liberation, but Jesus, fuck, that woman was a freak. Max, with all due respect, it was giving Maureen Prescott and then some. Arthur, don't you see? That's why you both had to be here. To see it all come to fruition. Isn't it incredible? Arthur looks up lovingly at Max. Arthur. Babe, can you believe this night has finally come? Max nods, a shit-eating grin on his face. Max. I believe it. Tonight, we become legends. All three of us, Sade. From this moment on, they'll be telling our story. The way we've scripted it. Sidney. Wow. I've sat through a lot of these, and I have to say, this is uniquely psychotic. Max and Arthur's smiles both drop from their faces. Sidney. You guys know how this always ends, right? Badly. For you, Arthur gritting his teeth. Well, that's appropriately smug, Ms. Prescott. I know it's always been about you, or eventually becomes about you, but tonight that's over. For good. Tonight isn't it another fucking Sidney Prescott survival. It's about sacrifice. There will be nothing left of you inside. Only space for her. This is your destiny, Sade. Embrace it. Sadie lays her hands over Arthur's, desperate to get through to him. She shakes her head, sobbing. Sadie. But Artie, I don't want this. If I'm the new Sidney... Max. No. You are not a new Sidney. You're not some fucking clone. You are Sadie Kruger. Sadie. Okay, whatever. You two, you are dooming me. People are gonna come after me for the rest of my life. I will never be safe. I'll never be normal. That's what you want from me? You two hate me that much? Arthur and Max's expressions soften. They look to each other. Max, no, 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 no. We love you, Sade. Arthur, Sade, we're not dooming you. We're giving you a gift. Can't you see that? This is fated. It's beyond our control. There's like a greater design behind all of this, just like when our dads died. It brought us together. He looks to Max adoringly. To do something only the two of us understood. It took a long time, but once we realized what was happening, Max, yeah, star-crossed and shit. Max and Arthur share another deep, long kiss. Sadie tries to pull her hand away, but Arthur tightens his grip on hers. Sadie, star-crossed sounds beautiful, but she places her hands at the edge of the table. It means thwarted, assholes. Sidney shoots up from her chair with all of her strength, flips the table forward. Max and Arthur topple backwards in their chairs, the table briefly trapping them and giving Sidney enough time for Sadie and Sidney to make a run for it. Max and Arthur push the table back up and are quickly on their feet. Arthur rushes after Sidney and Sadie, but Max diverts to the kitchen. Interior Kruger house, foyer, night. Sadie and Sidney are almost at the door when they hear Arthur's voice booming from behind them. Arthur, hey, where are you going? We haven't brought out the special guest yet. Sadie stops and grabs Sidney's arm. Sadie, realizing, wait, my dad. Arthur, ding, ding, ding. Maxie, baby, what do they win? The kitchen door swings open and Ross, duct taped at his hands, feet, and mouth, is thrown to the ground. Max steps over him, then grabs his legs and drags him closer to the center of the living room. Arthur gestures with his knife for Sadie and Sidney to step away from the door. Sadie quickly obeys, but Sidney lingers with her hand on the knob. Arthur, I'm serious, Sidney. I will slash your fucking throat and FaceTime your kids while you choke to death on your own blood. Sidney scowls at Arthur and steps away from the door. Arthur keeps close behind Sidney, his knife lightly touching her spine as he guides her deeper into the living room. Sadie instinctively rushes to her father, but Max lunges forward with his knife, warning her not to come any closer. Arthur pushes Sidney towards Sadie. He drapes one arm around each of them, his left hand clasping lightly, but menacingly, over Sadie's throat, and his knife in his right hand haphazardly dangling over Sidney's chest. Arthur, watch closely. You're never going to see this coming. Max rolls Ross over onto his stomach, then straddles him. Ross pointlessly but desperately tries to wiggle himself free. Max's knees tighten on either side of Ross's arms. He wraps both of his hands around the handle of his hunting knife and brings his arms up, ready to strike. He turns and smiles at Sadie and Sidney. Sadie, please, don't do this. Max, please. Max, what do you think, Sid? Do we spare him? Do we frame him? Do we cut his stomach open and jump rope with his guts? 1, 2, Ghostface is coming for you. Sidney, appalled and annoyed, stares blankly at Max. Max, come on, tell us what you're thinking. Sidney, I'm thinking I really wish I had a gun right now. Arthur, fuck guns. They've ruined this country and the stab movies. Max's arms begin to shake with anticipation. He brings his knife down towards Ross's back, then freezes. Max, hey, I've got an idea. Come here, Sade. Arthur grins, pushes Sadie toward Max. Sadie is paralyzed with fear, unsure what to do. Max smacks the hardwood floor. Max, Sadie, now! Sadie takes a cautious step toward Max, who grabs her arm and pulls her down beside him. He takes his knife and places it in her hands, then grabs her wrist and pulls it toward Ross's back. Note, this mirrors the opening sequence when Kayla is forced to stab Norman. No, stop! Max firms up his grip on Sadie's arm, his bloody hand from the wound inflicted by Sidney earlier, soaking red, all over Sadie. Sadie resists, but Max is too strong. He forces her to bring the knife down between Ross's arms and begins to cut away the duct tape. Max stands up and steps aside as Ross turns on his back, sits up, and calmly yanks the duct tape from his mouth, then his ankles. Sadie watches him, too baffled to be relieved. Ross gets on his feet, reaches his arms out to Sadie. Ross, Sadie, baby, it's all right. Come to daddy. Sadie looks up at him and then looks to Sidney, who is utterly infuriated to be at Arthur's mercy. Ross, Sadie, come! Sadie limply walks over to Ross and allows him to envelop her in a hug. She winces in pain. Ross lifts his hands from her back and sees they're covered in blood. He turns her around and pulls her sweater up to examine the slashes across her back. He then crouches down to look at the puncture in her thigh. He looks at Arthur angrily. Ross, thought I told you boys not to cut too deep. Arthur, we tried our best. Max, yeah, it's hard in the moment to gauge how... Ross, shut the fuck up. Ross effortlessly grips the shoulder seam of his flannel shirt and tears off a strip. He wraps it around Sadie's thigh tightly to stop the bleeding. She yelps at the sudden pain. Ross, I'm sorry, baby. Ross stands back up and brings his hands to Sadie's face. He wipes at her tears, smiles affectionately. Sadie, Daddy, what have you done? Ross, hey, it's gonna be all right. Trust me. Sadie, how? What they did to Mom? Ross, no. What she did to us. Sadie, she didn't deserve that. Sidney enraged. And your daughter didn't deserve to have to watch. Ross sneers at Sidney. Ross, who the fuck asked you? Huh? I tried to tell you that scumbag husband of yours was going to ruin your life. And at least my wife's shitty behavior wasn't in vain. At least she died for something bigger. Looking to Max and Arthur. You know, I thought these two were out of their minds when they came to me with those pictures of Sharon with Mark. But when they laid it all out, it was undeniable. Max and Arthur smile at each other proudly. Sidney, Max, Arthur, you trust this guy? You think he's actually going to let you just walk away from all of this? How's that going to work? You know he can't keep you two alive. Arthur spins Sidney around, menacing grin on his face. Arthur, fuck, I guess we gave you too much credit. We don't want to walk away from this, Sidney. That's the whole fucking point. We're not letting anyone else write our ending. We are in control. Max walks over to Arthur, takes his hand. Max, babe, come on, it's time. Arthur lets out a sound of pure elation. Max's face is flush with nervous excitement. Ross, back against the wall, Sid. Don't move a fucking muscle. Arthur lets go of Sidney and shoves her forward. She steps back and leans against the wall as instructed. Arthur and Max embrace, look deeply into each other's eyes. Max, you ready? Arthur nods eagerly. Arthur, I love you. Max, I love you. Arthur brings his mouth to Max's, then gasps in pain. His head tilts downward, but Max grabs the back of his head. Max, no, keep looking at me. Arthur nods. Max's smile suddenly contorts in an anguished grimace. He coughs, and blood splatters across Arthur's face. We pull back and see that Max and Arthur have stabbed each other in the stomach. Sidney, Jesus Christ. Sadie buries her face into Ross's chest, but he turns her back around to face the carnage. Ross, I'm sorry, baby, but they're doing this for you. You have to watch. Arthur and Max let out horrific groans as they retract their knives at the same time. Arthur. Again! Max nods, braces himself as Arthur drives his knife back into his gut. Max's back curls in agony. He brings his knife outward and penetrates Arthur below the ribs. Arthur's knees buckle and he drops to the ground, wrapping his arms around Max's legs and dragging him down with him. Max lands hard on his knees, then pulls his knife from Arthur's side and stabs him once again, this time squarely in the chest. Arthur emits a sharp, pained whistle, his face alight with ecstasy as the life rapidly drains from him. With his last bit of energy, Arthur reaches for a knife, protruding from Max's back, but Max resists. He pushes Arthur's hand away and carefully sits down. Max's face is flooded with tears of pain and panic. Max, I'm sorry. I love you, but I don't want to die. Arthur's death rattle intensifies. He collapses back onto the hardwood floor and seizes for a few seconds before his body goes perfectly still. Max howls in a mix of grief and unbearable physical trauma. He looks to Ross pleadingly. Max, I don't want to die. Help me. Ross takes a step forward and crouches down beside Max. He places a fatherly hand on Max's head and smiles. Ross, hey, we've talked about this, buddy. It's the only way. Ross stands up and raises his leg, and despite Max's horrific plea, stomps on Max's back, driving the knife handle deep into his spine. Max shoots forward, his arms and legs splayed out, instantly killed. Ross, this fucking generation can't commit to anything. Ross turns around just in time to see Sidney and Sadie, hand in hand, running toward the kitchen. Interior Kruger house, kitchen, night. Sadie and Sidney make a beeline for the back door. Ross storms in, jumps onto the kitchen table, then leaps off of it, tackling Sidney down to the ground. The impact throws Sadie into the wall. Ross grabs Sidney by the neck, squeezes his fingers into her throat. Sidney reaches her hands up and pushes her thumbs into Ross's eyeballs until he relents. Ross, bringing his hands to his eyes. Fuck you, you fucking cunt! Sidney rolls away from him and pulls herself up with an assist from the kitchen counter. Ross immediately back on her. He puts her in a headlock and drags her backwards, but not before she's able to reach her hand into the sink and extract an ice pick. She brings it and stabs him through the forearm multiple times. Ross barks in a painful rage as Sidney scuttles forward. He grabs a hold of Sidney's foot and drags her back toward him. She kicks him in the stomach, then darts back, aiming the ice pick at his throat. But Ross is quick to grab Sidney's arm and land a punch in her gut. The ice pick falls from her hands as she collapses backwards. Ross once again jumps on top of Sidney. He grabs her by the shoulders and begins slamming her against the tile floor. Ross, it's a shame things worked out this way. I always kind of had a thing for you, Sid. Sidney, despite the beating she's taken, expertly reaches her right arm diagonally across to Ross's left shoulder and pulls him towards her as she forces herself into a sit-up position, her forehead cracking into Ross's nose. He stumbles back and grabs at his face with both hands. He moves his gore-soaked hands to reveal a badly broke nose and shattered front teeth. Ross, ever more determined, lunges at Sidney on all fours, but not before Sidney grabs a dangling cord on the counter and pulls down a stainless steel mixer that bops Ross hard in the side of the head. Ross, fuck! Ross slams the mixer down next to him, but quickly grabs the cord and loops it around Sidney's neck. Once, twice, 3 times. He stands up, dragging Sidney upright along with him, her feet dangling off of the ground, essentially hanging her. Sidney desperately tries to wiggle her fingers into the cord to get some relief, but it's no use. Ross yanks it tighter, Sidney's face rapidly purpling. Sadie appears behind Ross, a kitchen knife raised. She brings it down and stabs him in the shoulder, causing him to lose his grip on Sidney. Sidney falls to the ground and pulls the cord from her throat, gasping for air. Ross, Sadie! What the fuck? Sadie crouches down beside Sidney, who is barely coherent. Ross takes a step toward them, but Sadie swings her knife in his direction. Sadie, don't come any closer! I'll kill you! I swear to fucking God! Ross, hey, Sade, come on. You're not gonna kill your old man. I know you. Sadie shakes her head, sobbing. Sadie, how could you do this? Ross, I did this for you. For us. Think of the life we'll have once this is all behind us. Book deals, movie deals. You're going to be set for life, Sade. You're special. You've always been special. Now the whole world will know. Sadie, no, you ruined my life. You're fucking crazy. Ross, no, baby. I'm very sane. I've got it all under control. Once tonight is over, everything is different for us. This one night changes everything, okay? I'm giving you everything. We just need to take care of her. Sadie, and then what? What about her daughters? Huh? What about what that would do to them? Ross, well, we'll have to take care of them too. Sadie gasps in shock. She can't believe what she's hearing. Ross, baby, it's the right thing to do. Think of what they've inherited from her. It was selfish of her to even fucking procreate in the first place. Sadie, what about me? You don't think there'll be copycats? Psychos who want to be Arthur and Max? Ross, that won't happen. I promise you. I'll protect you. I've always protected you. Ross gingerly lowers himself to the ground and walks on his knees over to Sadie, his hands raised. Ross, nothing up my sleeve, baby. Let's finish this together, okay? We're gonna get through this, but we don't have much time. Sidney, suddenly alert, sits up, scoots herself back against the wall, but she's too weak to do much else. Sadie lightly presses the knife to Ross's chest. She's overwhelmed, confused, terrified. She knows what she has to do, but Ross, is that what you want? You want me dead? You want to be all alone? Sadie begins to sob, her hands shaking. Ross places his hands over hers and gently pushes the knife away from his chest. Ross, easy, easy. That's right. Daddy's little girl. Always will be. Sadie looks to Sidney. Sadie, I'm so sorry. I can't do it. Ross grins. He moves to embrace Sadie, but she pulls back. Ross shrugs at her, confused. Doesn't see Gale fucking Weathers entering the back door, approaching from behind, his axe in her hand. Gale, don't worry, I've got it. Ross, surprised by the sound of Gale's voice, looks over his shoulder just as Gale swings the axe and, in one ferociously assured move, decapitates him. Sidney jumps up and wraps her arms around Sadie, shielding her from the sight of her father's headless body withering on the kitchen floor, blood spurting everywhere, like something out of a scary movie. Sidney looks up at Gale, sighs, unable to hide her relief. Sidney, I told you to stay at the house. Gale, yeah, well, I would have given you a heads up, but I figured you were occupied. Close on, the axe falling from Gale's hands onto the kitchen floor. A grim close to a grim chapter. Interior Newton Township Hospital room morning. Mark, out of the ICU and in a private room, begins to stir. He lets out a pained gasp and begins to cough. His eyes slowly flutter open. He's confused for a moment, afraid, until he looks over his shoulder and sees Sidney, her arm in a sling, fast asleep on the chair beside him. Mark scrunches his chapped, blistering mouth into something of a smile, tears streaming down his face. Interior Newton Township Hospital, another room, morning. Sadie, battered and alone, in every sense of the word, lay in her hospital bed, staring aimlessly out the window. A light knocking on the door snaps her back into the present. She rolls her head toward the door and smiles when she sees Sidney cautiously entering her room. Sidney, all right if I come in? Sadie nods yes. Sidney sits down on the corner of the bed. Sadie, what am I supposed to do now? Sidney, rest, heal. They'll want to keep you for a few days. I think that's a good idea. Sadie, no. I mean after. What do I do now? Who am I now? Sidney, you're Sadie Kruger. You're a survivor. Sadie shakes her head in protest, begins to sob. Sadie, no. I'm not like you. I'm not strong like you. I can't. Sidney, hey, listen to me. Last night, Max and Arthur and your dad, they tried to change you, to turn you into a victim, and you said no. I can't think of anything stronger than that. Sadie, I was freaking out. I don't even know what I said. Sidney, well, I know. I heard you loud and clear. They tried to force this on you, and you rejected it. Do you know how long it took me to be able to do that for myself? Sadie, how long? Sidney thinks for a moment. I don't know, like 3 or 4 fucking stab movies. Sadie can't help but laugh, which makes Sidney smile. Sidney, it's going to be terrible for a really long time, but I'm here, all right? For as long as you want me to be. Sadie's eyes widen in a pleasant surprise as Ella and Grace saunter into the room. Ella climbs onto Sidney's lap while Grace leans against the bed railing. Grace, are you hurt? Sadie, a little bit, yeah. Ella, Mommy got a little bit hurt too. Sadie, I know. She got hurt helping me. Grace, yeah, that happens a lot. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, front porch, morning. Sidney and Gale sit on the porch together with mugs of coffee, watching the morning unfold on England Court. Gale, you sure you don't need me to stick around for a couple more days? Help with the girls? Sidney, nah, I think we'll manage. Are you sure you don't want to stay for a bit longer? Gale, meh, the suburbs bore me. Sidney, these past few days have been boring for you? Gale's phone lights up and buzzes in her lap. She taps the screen and sends the call to voicemail. Sidney, that thing's been going off like crazy all morning. Who is it? Gale, agents, producers, editors from the Big Five. They all want the first bite. Sidney, what are you going to do? Gale thinks for a moment, unlocks her phone. Close on Gale's phone screen as she selects the dozens of emails and deletes them in one fell swoop. Sidney, they'll keep calling. Gale, so I'll keep deleting. Sidney flashes Gale a skeptical smirk. She doesn't quite believe this is the end of the Gale Weathers as we know her, but she's impressed nonetheless. Sidney raises her coffee mug. Gale reciprocates. They clink. Exterior Prescott Kincaid residence, patio, evening. Sidney sits back on a lounger on the patio, a glass of wine on the table beside her. She watches the sun slowly setting over the hills in the distance. She closes her eyes and takes a deep, exaggerated breath, clearly making a conscious decision to try and relax. Her eyes shoot open when she hears a sudden, cacophonous rustling of leaves around her. She uses her uninjured arm to push herself up from the lounger. She looks around anxiously, taking in the quickly darkening backyard. She pulls her phone from her cardigan pocket. On the phone screen, Sidney opens the Homestead app, double taps on Ella and Grace's bedroom. They're safe and fast asleep. She begins to cycle through all of the cameras, checking every room in the house. Nothing is out of place. She turns to the patio doors to walk back inside the house, then stops. A moment later, Sidney tilts the ladder against the house. She carefully climbs up to the vent below Ella and Grace's window. Sidney peers into the vent. The nest remains, but the birds are gone. Sidney observes the emptiness for a moment. A tiny, involuntary tear trickling down her face. She climbs back down the ladder. Cut to black. The final scream, written by Joey Vallese, based on the characters created by Kevin Williamson, Aaron Kruger, and Wes Craven. Performed and produced by Ryan C. Showers. Character/cast list presented in normal franchise fashion. Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott. Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers. Patrick Dempsey as Mark Kincaid, Leslie Bibb as Lulu, Ariana Grande as Kayla Bartell, Josh Hartnett as Ross Kruger, Luke McFarlane as Lex, Olivia Munn as Mimi, Sam Nivola as Arthur, Natasha Rothwell as Callie, Brooke Smith as Debbie Ann, Sophie Thatcher as Sadie Kruger, Liv Tyler as Sharon Kruger, Hudson Williams as Max, a special appearance by David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Stephen Yun as Principal James Lee, presented two at a time, Bridget Everett as Angel, and Bowen Yang as Norman Wu. Scott Evans and T.R. Knight as Stuart and William Hooper, with Alfre Woodard as Alice Greenwood, and Jamie Lee Curtis as Janet Mancini. I need to give a special thanks to everyone at the podcast level who helped make this script what it is today. They include TJ Jones, Ashley Summers, Josh Carr, Josh Reinhold, Robert Anthony Yedon for his artwork, and Connor McKee from A Very Simple Formula on Instagram for the two formal posters. I need to thank every single person over at Patreon who helps support the show in any shape, way, or form. Every single one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In particular, I need to thank my Daddy Ghostfaces and Stab Investors. So let's start out with Mama Ghostfaces. Thank you to Carrie Tenney. Thank you to Corey Wilson and Brett Genovich. I also need to thank Ali, Roy Garza, Josh Carr, Mark Harim, Philip Douglas, Gustavo Mora, Mark Vieira, Scream Queens Podcast, both Justine and Josh, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, David D., Jess Mariano, The Horror Project Podcast, Sam Levy, Tamika Jones, Josh Calamari, Andrew Dominguez, and Sarah Campbell. I need to reiterate how grateful I am to Joey Vallese for his masterful work here, giving us the final Scream, the third and final script in our trilogy of Scream 7, Episode 112, Screams, Episode 155, and now the final Scream, Episode 275.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!